are. Make it team. Truth Frequency Radio.
I wanna know, are you true? Can you woo, 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 woo? They don't thug it like I do. Can you woo, 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 woo? I wanna know, are you true? Can you woo, 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 woo? They don't run this like we do. Can you woo, woo, woo?
Is it true? Is it deja vu? Is it you? Can I come through and kick it with you? Can we woo, woo, woo? Sniff a little ooh, ooh. Don't really matter cause you're still my boo, boo. We can slide out, ride out, back to my hideout. You men are never...
What's up, brothers, sisters, truthers, and tinfoil hatters, and woo stickers, Wookiees, time travelers, ghost hunters, and black goo creepers? You know what time it is, people. It's Freaky Friday, October 27, 2017. As always, we're sending out to nothing but love vibe to the Wookiee Cave at tfrlive.com/chat. And everyone out there listening on the FM frequencies at 90.7 in Denver, Colorado, 97.3 in Eugene, Oregon, and everyone else out there listening on these things we call the nets, our heart radio listeners, and all around the world. Welcome, lizard aliens, interdimensional beings, or AI, looking for data, sky watchers, rain dancers, chupacabras, voodooers. It doesn't matter. What's up? Whoever, whatever, wherever you are, man. Kick on back. You're listening to Freaky Friday on TFR True Frequency Radio. And here on the USS Freaky Friday is the usual suspect crew, Captain Woo himself, Kev Baker, on the bridge. First Officer Joe Joseph, detecting strange life forms in the Wookiee Cave. We got Joe, torpedoes locked, whistles, beam us up, Scotty Lopez in the transporter room, and I'm Kenneth Webb, a.k.a. YouTube's changed the channel. And gentlemen, are we ready for some freaky?
Oh, wow. Oh, we are now. Freaky Friday's just got real again, everyone. Kenneth Webb, where have you been? You know, many have tried to imitate your opening kind of sequence there, but we all fall flat on our faces. How you doing, brother? It's great to have you back.
Oh, I'm glad to be back with you guys. I missed all of y'all, man. Joe, Scotty, and I've enjoyed being on the show with you guys, you know, on the Kev Baker show, and missed Johnny as well, man, and everybody in the Wookiee Cave. I'm just glad to be back and fortunate and blessed to be back with you guys and on this Freaky Friday, because it's getting crazy. 2017. Oh my goodness, October, Halloween is upon us. I mean, there's a madness in the universe. It's crazy.
You know, over 130 odd shows on Freaky Friday now. And you would think after a while we would start running out of things to talk about. It would become repetitive, right? But it doesn't, because like Ken's just said there, it just gets crazier and crazier, and there's far more for us to get into. And of course, it's not just me and Ken here tonight. Joe Joseph, 2 weeks on the trot, man. This is like my Christmas has come early, Joe. How you doing, man?
Just for you, man.
Oh, I feel so special.
And for Ken. No, for all you. Now, you know, it's any chance I get to make it to Freaky Friday, you know I'm going to make it. This is my favorite time of the week. This is the only time of the week where we get to really discuss anything that we want to put out there. Because it can be freaky, and then it can't be. And then it could be both at the same time. Because we're quantum here, too. So it all works out.
Very quantum. I hope there's some first-time listeners tonight, one sitting there wondering, what's this Freaky Friday all about? Why does Kev
are they in for it?
Why does Kev always dare us into listening to this on Facebook? Because this is a unique radio experience. It really is. And it's not just me, it's not just Ken, and it's not just Joe either. Because Scotty Lopez, he's here.
Woo!
And Scott, I have to thank you, man. Over the past couple of weeks, you really have stepped up and helped me no end. And Johnny Whistles, who we'll go to next, he'll appreciate it as well, because many a night that you've joined me, Scott, it could well have turned into one of Johnny Whistles' pet hates. It would have been a rebroadcast, dude. So it's thanks to you, honestly, that we've had so many great Kev Baker shows this week, man. How you doing, Scotty?
Oh, I'm doing good. And hey, man, it's always excellent to be on KBS. It's I gotta bring my A game because it's very, very hard to fill the Whistler shoes. I have to.
And
I have to.
it's 2 hours. It's 2 hours now, guys. 2 hours of Kev Baker. What?
I know, Scott. It wasn't funny the other night when Ken was the break. He thought that was his rants over, and then he heard me saying, "Get ready for hour number 2." He lost the plot, didn't he, Scott?
Yeah, it kind of blew his mind when he heard that it was going to be hour two. But it's great that you've moved to a 2 hour slot for KBS. 1 hour was just not enough for the excellence that is the Kev Baker Show.
Exactly, and for all the madness going on in the Matrix, and I've saved the best for last. His cult listeners out there will be listening with bated breath. Is he here? Is he not? Johnny Whistles, how you doing, my good man?
I'm doing fine, Kev. Thanks very much. And Kev, what a squad to be in tonight. We've got, do you know what I mean? Joe Joseph.
The band's back together, John.
It is yeah, I mean, honestly, it is great to have everybody here tonight. So this is going to be a cracker. So I'm really looking forward to getting into this one.
Why is it got to be cracker, Johnny? Are you getting all racial and whatnot now?
No, see, that's an American term. A cracker.
I'm racially offended by that.
This is going to be really good.
So if you started off with that tonight, Joe, I was talking about robots wearing burqas in Saudi Arabia last night. It's going to be one of those shows. But Johnny, I mean, we've had Kenneth Webb giving us his entry into the show, but it won't be a Freaky Friday until you do the honours. Into the Batcave, Johnny.
I'm in there just now, Kev, straight into the tinfoil hat area, and we have an amazing number of people again. We're starting with Two in Blue. We've got Dr. Kayak, Not a Criminal. Then we have Armand, Brett Phillips. We've got Brig. Got Change the Channel, the man himself. We've got Daryl. We've got Daryl 6-3, whatever it may be. We've got Drone Free Zone, Epic Journey. Now, why is my chat disappeared, Kev?
Oh, dude, it's really glitchy tonight. Just so you know, I'm trying to type things in and it's not even showing up.
Get my Palantir crystal balls out and I will have a look at them. No, I don't know, Johnny. I do not know where you're.
Did you just say you're gonna break your crystal balls out?
Well,
what is that? Did you just bathe or something? Is that what it is? They're all crystally now.
Well, for every crystal skull, there must surely be 2 crystal balls, no?
Tis true.
Well, it's true, guys.
Johnny,
anyway, Kev.
Have you
we have. We had Drone Free Zone. We've got Epic Journeyman. We've got Galactic Pixie, Hillbilly Hermit, Jabber Baby Wookie. We've got Jan for Peace, Mr. Joe Joseph, Kev Baker. We've got Moira, Nancy Lalonde. We've got Rockin' Rio, Rock Lobster himself. We've got Scotty Jones and Scotty Lopez, TFR Wookie. We've got Thomas, Valkyrie. We've got myself, Who Said They Could, Bison. We've got George Jones, Homeless Poet. We've got Joe S, Lollipop. Mary Sharp, the wonderful Oklahoma princess herself. We've got Needle Gunner. We've got Shaza, Veronica, how you doing? And last but not least, Waffle Buddy.
Waffle Buddy?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, Waffle Buddy.
But it's making me kind of hungry. It really is. And you know, Freaky Friday, I've got a perfect place for us to start tonight.
Where are we starting tonight, Kev?
Well, I want to come to you guys over there on that side of the pond, right? Because I was led to believe wrongly that we were finally going to get the truth on JFK.
Lord Jesus, really?
But they've withheld all the good parts, Joe. What on earth?
Come on. Do you honestly think
no
that? I was going to say, because when have they given us reason to believe them in the first place? That's what I don't understand. Everybody's all up in arms. Oh, that's not how it happened. Of course it's not how it happened. That's exactly. You honestly think that they're just going to have this come to Jesus moment, sing Kumbaya, and, oh, here, we're going to actually tell you the truth for once. No, that's not what's going to happen. It's never going to happen. And we just need to understand that our government, your government, hell, any government out there doesn't work for you. They work for themselves. And they're not going to let you know what really happened, because if they did, well, first of all, everybody knows what really happened. Back into the left didn't happen. And we just have to go at it ourselves. Ain't that right, Ken? I mean, that's what it all comes down to.
No, I think they told us the truth, Joe. And I think they always tell us the truth. But, it's oh so subtle. National security concerns. Yes, it is. That was the reason that those few hundred documents wasn't released.
Yeah,
national security concern. Exactly. So they told us the truth. We just can't accept the truth. We can't handle the truth. That's what it's all about. And I think and it is. Every time I hear that used as an excuse, I'm like, for releasing any kind of documents or blacking out the documents that they put out there, I'm like, yeah, they did tell us the truth. How can we argue with that? Because if we did know the truth, there would be a national security concern. We would be concerned. We would be mad. There would be a security risk, no doubt. I mean, what do the rest of you guys think?
No, I agree with you. What about you, Scotty? What do you think, dude?
Well, I think the greatest revelation that has come out from this is the fact that they were going to booby trap a seashell and kill Castro while he was scuba diving. I'm dead serious, and I was not aware that Castro was an avid scuba diver. I've never seen a picture of Castro in his scuba gear. So,
but I mean, seriously, did their script writers just they go to like the bargain basement, the 80% off, everything must go bin or something like that to pull that one out? I mean, come on, man.
How do you strategically place a seashell to blow up?
I thought the seashells were the things in the future that we wipe our butts with instead of toilet paper.
Okay, I'm going to do it. I got to Google image it. Castro, deep sea diving, something. Everybody out there, go to it, look it up. There's got to be a picture of this guy, because I've never heard of Castro. I mean, we haven't seen any daggone pictures out there of this dude out there with he got some, these little flippers on, and he got a little thing on going there. Come on, man. This is the bunch of crap.
If you can't find any pictures, I will do my CIA best and fire up Photoshop.
I
will create a picture.
Kev's got pictures.
I've got evidence, folks. Give me 30 seconds. I have evidence, Scotty.
Leave it to our crack Scottish mall cop, ex-mall cop.
Oh, he does. It is. They actually got pictures of this fool with some stuff now. When was this uploaded, though? Because this might have been in the last couple of days. I think they're full of it. Come on. Oh, he's got his little snorkel on and everything. Come on.
Well, seashells maybe, I don't know. Maybe it was a covert way, kind of, to do it with plausible deniability, because after all, there are self-exploding seashells that just litter the ocean floor. So, of course, that is a viable threat. But, Kev, what is this nugget that you found here? Did Nibiru aliens actually kill JFK? Oh, because there's a shock claim out there that actually ETs caused the president's death, not seashells, or not, Lee Harvey Oswald. Just saying.
You're right, Joe. You're right. And we're going to get really strange tonight, and this has to be one of the strangest
things. Have to be.
To do with JFK. It says that JFK's assassination at the hand of Lee Harvey Oswald on November 22nd, 1963, remains prime fodder for conspiracy theorists around the world. The release of more than 3,000 documents today, dubbed the JFK Files, how original, aims to silence disbelievers and sort historical fact from fiction. But a spectacular claim about the true nature of what happened in Texas more than 50 years ago could shake the US to its core.
Right.
A YouTube video uploaded under the title JFK Assassination Evidence in Malta the Nibiru connection.
Oh,
It's that the US president was in fact killed, not by the CIA or by the KGB or even Lee Harvey Oswald, but it was in fact extraterrestrials. The bizarre video kicks off at a JFK memorial in San Paul, Malta, supposedly built and co-funded by American citizens living there and the Maltese government in 1964. In the video, a man says, Jesus Christ said, I am the truth, the way, and the light. Who killed John F. Kennedy? The answer lies here at this monument in St. Paul in Malta. As you can see, there is a very interesting circular structure behind me. What appears to be a flying saucer landing pad. What else would such a structure be good for? Exactly. The video points out how the monument appears to be blackened from the inside, hinting that it had been scorched by an alien spacecraft. Quoting from the video again, it says, and in the middle, a lot of pentagrams pointing upwards. This is clearly and obviously a flying saucer pad. What a totally logical kind of leap to make. In the center of you have 50 pentagrams. Inside the cage, a half dome with President John F. Kennedy's inscription on it. Ironically, this structure is built in memory of Kennedy, who was killed after exposing the Freemasons of America and the rest of the world. In an unsurprising twist of events, the video abruptly cuts to archive footage of JFK assassination overlaid with snippets of biblical scripture. I won't get any further into that, but what do you think? Did aliens take out JFK?
Absolutely. Now we're getting to the truth here. Finally.
The truth. At least it's closer than what we have been told.
It's exactly. At least we're on the right track, because this is much more believable than exploding seashells. And I don't know. I have to think that aliens have to be like doing a galactic facepalm. However they end up doing it, I don't know how they do it. Maybe their suction cups get in the way and it rips their forehead off, or something. I don't know. But I got to imagine that our galactic neighbors have to be getting pissed at being blamed for everything. If anything else, like those crazy humans, they just keep blaming us for everything. Why can't they take responsibility for their own dysfunctionality? I know it. I can feel it.
What do you
What
think?
do you guys think?
Yeah, come on, Whistles. What do you think,
Whistles,
man?
come on. You got to think it. I don't know. What do you think? This is
We've
great.
had Mary Baker on the show, Johnny. You know what I mean? I think she's told us more of the truth than we'll ever get from any release of files from Trump or anyone else.
Yeah. The files that they released, Kev, I mean, as it says on them, it really doesn't go much further than what we already know, what they have told us that actually happened. But honestly, it just seems like a total waste of time, because there was nothing ever going to come out of it. They were never going to release anything that anybody was going to be incriminated. So you knew right away it was going to be a no-show.
You also got to look at, though, I always think I knew that we weren't going to get much out of it. But you got to look in the lines. What do they want us to know about it? What did they want us to, that knee-jerk reaction kind of thing off of them, to make us go, oh, Castro scuba diving, people go off on that kind of stuff. But, what is that? Well, of course, we're not going to get the smoking gun. I've noticed on the different media now they're talking about, this will give the conspiracy theorists, all the stuff they really wanted by not telling them anything and making them wait another 25 years for this information, But at the end of the day, it's like really, we already know. We already really know that it was, there was something more than the actual what they're telling us or what they're going to release. But there does have a tendency to be those little tiny things in those documents. And once they get gone through, things that will, raise the conspiracy. I'm a conspiracy theorist all day long. I adorn my tinfoil hat proudly, better than sticking my hand in the sand, to give us information that will let us make us think and push us in a different direction of research. I do believe there's something in there. There's something that they didn't catch. because they're only human as well when they release these documents. And sometimes it's either A, that there's something that slid through the cracks, or B, they push through the cracks to make us think and feel a certain way. So there's always something there. And I haven't went through them, so I really don't know. But I am looking forward to going through them and seeing what other people also have to say about it, because there's always those little things that make you go, huh? Like the seashell incident, the seashell gate, if you want to call it that,
Shell.
I'm too suspicious.
Yeah, shell gate.
If there's anything in there of any value that anybody picks up on, like you put it there, Ken, I think they'll have pushed that through the cracks. It'll be in there as a red herring to almost distract people from something that they have kept hidden. And again, the people that are behind conspiracies like this are not stupid. And I don't honestly think if they're 50 years later, over 50 years later, there's going to be absolutely no paper trail left to show anybody what really happened that day. We can all make our own theories up from the information that's out there. And I mean, a big shout out to the late Jim Marrs just now as well, because without him, a lot of the stuff that we hold as common knowledge about the JFK assassination fiasco, it was thanks to Jim's research. And of course, we lost him earlier this year. But imagine his excitement at this coming out. He'd have ripped these apart, Joe. Scott, anyone?
Oh,
He most
definitely
certainly would have. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but it's one of those things. Like I had posted on my Facebook, I said, do you really expect the government? Do you really expect the JFK files to admit government involvement when it's the government themselves releasing them? I mean, come on, we're not gonna know. We're not gonna know what really happened, and we'll never know. And some people were kind of wondering if Trump was maybe sort of sending a coded kind of like, hey guys, when he said, I have no choice, but I have to hold back these documents. Almost like maybe they pulled him to the side or brought him into the smoky room and showed him the footage of the showed him the unseen footage of the shooter coming from the grassy knoll, and they're like, yeah, well, you're not going to be releasing these couple hundred documents.
No,
and
that's a good point. That's a very good point. And you don't know if that truly is the case, but it would certainly fall in line with some of the past actions that have happened.
Because maybe he really did want to release them all, and maybe he did order them to release them all, and they said, no, and then he's like, why? And they're like, hey, come, we're going to go show you something real quick. And then he comes out and he's like, oh, okay, national security.
It's just bizarre because, and this is just my 2 cents, you've got a guy in there that claims to be independent of the shadow government structure, yet you have a release of information like this, and a lot of it's redacted, and here he is saying, well, kind of don't have a choice in the matter. You know what I mean? So I think that what we're seeing here, again, I firmly believe leaders are selected, not elected. I believe he was put in there. He was chosen to be the guy for whatever reason, whether it's just because he's a billionaire Bubba and he can do what. A great example of that, not to get too off a subject with Freaky Friday, but the recent passage in the Senate of the Wells Fargo Immunity Act, and all coming from the fallout of the Equifax debacle, and that it exposed these arbitration clauses that are put into these agreements to where you lose the right to sue. And he pushed that through, got his VP to break the tie. And it just goes to show you the billionaire relationships that exist, and one of the reasons why he was put there. So if all these people out there that just love Trump and hump his leg on a daily basis on social media and otherwise might want to reconsider, whose leg you're humping, because, you may end up coming to find out that underneath that nice, smooth skin that you're rubbing up on is a cheese grater just waiting to eat you alive.
Well, Joe.
No, sorry,
Kev. I was just thinking that okay, Trump's not going to get, we're not going to get anything on the JFK thing, okay? But there's a more recent one that he could probably work on, and that's the 28 redacted pages about the Saudis' involvement in 9/11.
Yeah. I mean,
we were supposed to get those. We were supposed to get those too.
Yeah, but
that
we
was
never
one
did.
of the
And
big
even then, is it really true? Come on. I mean, even if they were involved, they were so low on the totem pole compared to, the big players that were involved. You know what I mean? So I don't know if I buy that. Now, interestingly enough, and we can get into this on the other side, they're building what's sure to be the biggest city on the face of the planet. They just came up with this new place called Neom.
Neom.
It almost sounds like when a freaking lightsaber turns on.
No.
Neom. Anyway, 33 times the size of New York City.
We played your video last night, Joe. We paid homage to the Joe Joseph, and
hey, that's great. But I mean, can you guys just think for a second what they're doing? This is huge, and so the Saudis, no doubt, are involved like everybody else. But I got to tell you, I think they're more like the support vice the people that are pulling the string. That's all I'm saying. We got to go to break, but we'll be right back on this edition of Freaky Friday with the complete Woo crew on your protection from deception. TruthFrequencyRadio.com. Don't go away.
You are now tuned into the Truth Frequency.
Your protection from deception. TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
Are we on the verge of an all-out economic collapse? Is America bankrupt? That's right.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Freaky Friday on your protection from deception. Truth Frequency Radio, truthfrequencyradio.com. I'm Joe Joseph, along with Kev Baker and the Whistler and Ken Webb and Scotty Lopez. The original, the 100% all-natural Woo Crew is in the house tonight talking about...
You know why that is? I think it's because Stranger Things is back for season 2.
Oh my God, I can't believe it.
I know, synchronicity must be at work. It's turned us all into that woo vibration. And I think that's what's brought us all back together tonight. And I've seen Lynn, I think it was, in the chat room earlier. 8 episodes in already. I'm envious. I'm waiting for...
Yeah, my brother's 9 episodes in. Yeah.
Nice.
Son of a gun. See, that's the thing, is I have a hard time. I have a hard time watching these series when it's going to leave me hanging and I know it. You know what I mean? It's one of those things like Stranger Things is. I had no idea how good that was going to be, but normally for these series, I like to wait till they're finished so I can watch the whole thing and not just be led off a cliff just to have to wait another year for it to come out again, But Stranger Things, man, I have been waiting for so long for this season 2 to come out because that was hands down one of the best series I think I've ever seen. Lynn in the chat room says, finished.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, I got to tell you something. Anybody out there, now I'm going to put my geek hat on for a second. Way back in the day when
Are we that old? Hang on. Are we that old that we can say way back in the day?
Oh, we can.
No.
Can I tell you? I got some of my peeps here at my new job. Right. I'll tell them about movies like, hey man, one of my favorite action movies of all time is Demolition Man. it's just so absurd that, but there's a lot of great stuff in there to show where they want to take society. And of course, I was talking about, the seashells earlier that they used to wipe their butt with, right? Well, one of my coworkers who's younger than I am said, "Wow, never heard of that movie. Must be before my time." I was like, "Really? It's before your time? Holy crap, I'm getting old." This is crazy. So, yeah, Kev, we're that old. We're getting to that point.
No, I'm not happy with that. I really am.
Yeah.
No, not good.
No, so we are getting to that point to where we can say that. And because you totally and completely derailed me, I don't even know where I was going with that.
Brilliant.
So Kev Baker won, Joe Joseph nothing.
You see, this is what happens now. I've got a 2-hour show every night. It's good training for taking you on now, Joe.
I know it is, isn't it?
Match for you. It's brilliant.
You can totally get a good 10 minutes out of derailing somebody and having them claw their way back from the abyss.
You're not going to remember where you were going with that one, and that's
I have no idea.
Because, folks, Johnny Whistles is here as well. And Johnny's working tomorrow. Imagine that. So we're going to hand over the wheel of Freaky Friday to Johnny Whistles. And I know so many of the listeners out there are going to love this. So, Johnny, into the woo we go. Where you
take the woo we go, Johnny?
Well, this is actually going to be, Joe, you were talking about feeling old. Don't bother, because we're not going to last anyway, because we're all going to be killed shortly. Okay? Now, you know that they've never, ever been able to predict an earthquake, okay? But somebody has, because Britain and Europe have to be hit by earthquake swarm on November the 19th. Now,
are you kidding me?
No, wait till you hear this.
This is for real now.
Yeah, this is in the Express. It must be real.
For real?
Pardon.
Now, a stellar body known as a brown dwarf, which has become alternately known as Nibiru, the Planet X, Nemesis and Black Star, is claimed to be pulling at the Earth's tectonic plates, triggering a glut of earthquake and volcanic activity around the world. Now, recent days have seen quakes and volcanic activity as far as Bali, California and the Canary Islands. But now tremor experts fear the world is gearing up for a major earthquake blitz, focused on November the 19th and subsequent weeks, which hit faults in southern Europe with a series of quakes which could be felt in London. I hope it actually raises it to the ground. Anyway, but the group at website planetxnews.com, so you know this is true, have been charting the movements of the so-called Black Star, which is believed to have a massive gravitational influence pulling and squeezing the Earth. Now,
yes. Hey, Johnny.
Nobody's seen this, but they're tracking
Johnny,
it.
question. Why is it, and I don't know, maybe you can give me an answer because I've yet to find it. Mm-hmm. Why is it that Nibiru can only be seen on YouTube? See, I just got to know.
No, the thing is, it's allowed on YouTube. If you show on TV, then you need to pay some sort of money.
I actually think Apple and the kind of Samsung phones, they're really missing a commercial avenue here, because they could really be putting their phones up against the best cameras and telescopes in the world. And maybe it's quite cheap for £1,000 iPhone then, when you consider it's got the special filter that not even the amateur astronomers have in their best cameras.
The Nibiru filter.
Well, think about this too. Do you remember when Pepsi did their commercial with the Black Knight satellite? Do you remember the freaking the hype, and everybody was talking about it? Holy crap, it's a Black Knight satellite. Oh, right. It was crazy. They're missing out on a huge marketing thing here, dude.
Yeah, we done a full show on that advert because of the program that was involved in that. But no, Johnny, I get your point entirely. And this is why, I used to look at, or I tried to keep up with the amount of Planet X videos that were coming across, because It's truly fascinating. I mean, who doesn't want to know if there's some extraplanetary body out there? Whether you believe in Sitchin's take on Nibiru, whatever, just scientifically. It's amazing, right? But after a while, and I'm sure the audience will have been here as well, you just become fed up because some of the evidence that's been promoted out there, and it's usually the stuff that gets even more of the views, I'm really, really sorry, and I hate to burst anyone's bubble here, but at best, some of the ones you're seeing are lens flares. Now, why people insist on posting still images in this day and age is beyond me, but if you're going to at least try and prove your case, it's got to at least be moving images. But then ask yourself, if you're seeing this from your back garden with your iPhone or something, then how isn't the amateur astronomy club in your local town or in your local area not seeing exactly the same thing?
Yeah.
They're amateurs. They're not getting paid off NASA or the European Space Agency. They're just amateurs like me and you. They happen to be into astronomy. You're into what you're into. But why aren't they reporting seeing these anomalies as well? It's because it's defects in the software and the hardware on these cameras that we all have. It's great having a camera in your pocket. It really is. But it's a good job to know its limitations as well, especially if you're going to go out on a limb and claim that you've filmed Planet X. Ta-da!
Wow.
Yes.
I don't think
agree.
I could have said it any better, dude. That was really good. And that's exactly how I feel. I just wish that people would get off the Planet X Express, only because even if it is real, and I'm sure that there's a measure of truth to it. I mean, the Sumerians wouldn't have written about it. And other cultures, remember, it's not just the Sumerians that talked about that planet, but also the South American civilizations also talked about it as well. So I'm sure there's a measure of truth to it. However, you discredit it horribly when you can't back it up with even simple amateur astronomy evidence, you know. So it's very difficult for me to kind of grasp onto that. Now, I will say that absolutely the Earth is going through changes, and as a result of those changes, we're experiencing an increase in earthquake activity and all that kind of stuff. Now, where those changes come from? Is it a cyclical solar thing? Is it because we're transiting the galactic plane and it's having an effect on our sun, which in turn is having an effect on our weather? That could be it. But a brown dwarf that's that close would be doing a lot more than what it's currently doing if it was that close. And a good example of that's the moon. Look at how the moon, just it going from the closest point to the farthest point in its orbit, the differences that it causes, just that subtle variation. Think about what would happen if something bigger than Jupiter came into our solar system. It would have to have more of a dramatic effect on this planet, just by using the moon as a reference, you know. So that's why I poo-poo the whole Nibiru thing, because it just doesn't make any sense to me. Yes.
I think it's important to really define it, though, because Joe's like me. We kind of, it's horrible to say, but we kind of rubbish the reports so that it's right beside the sun and things like that. But don't mistake that for discounting the whole Planet X extra planetary body on the whole. Because, Joe, I get this thrown at me a lot, you know, because, and I get where the kind of ambiguity comes from, because, I mean, here I am saying, no, this is all rubbish, it's bunkum, but yet other shows I'll talk about Planet X and the Anunnaki and stuff like that. And that's because I do think there is something out there.
Same here.
Definitely. But where it is, have we seen it? Obviously not.
No, I don't think so.
Exactly. Right. Is it coming in? I honestly do not know. You know, probably best looking at archaeological evidence or evidence around the planet from ancient times to see if there has been a cycle, because it would have to come back cyclically. So if you can keep going back maybe 13,000 years or 3,600 years, you know, all those common numbers that are thrown out there for the orbit of this, then you would expect to see some kind of evidence in the geology of the planet. What do you think, Johnny?
Yeah, Kev, I always looked at these, the ice that they drilled down in the Arctic and things and brought it up, and it was, when they counted it back, Kevin, there was about maybe three different bands of pure black in amongst the ice, and it was every 3,600 years that this happened.
See, that's what we're talking about. And I mean, I dare say, John, that a volcano that could produce that ash isn't going to go off like clockwork every 3,600 years like that. More logic to think that maybe something's on a long orbit.
Yeah, that's the way. I mean, as you say, Kev, there's no chance of 2 or even 3 volcanoes getting up at the same time. No, this has definitely got to be some sort of planetary object, as you say, that is in an orbit that we probably don't even know yet.
And, you know, they found more archaeological evidence of your ark today, Joe. I don't know if this is the real one or one of the faux ones, right? But, I mean, could we look at that flood as being maybe kind of blamed on Nibiru or a Planet X or something like that going by?
I think he's getting coffee.
Yes, trust me not to chat. So then, Joe, Scott, Ken, Johnny, Scotty, you take it.
No, I mean, I definitely think it's possible that there is some sort of planetary body that is swinging around every, in a multi-thousand-year cycle or whatever. But, I'm with everybody on this when it comes to these supposed sightings of Nibiru on cell phone cameras and stuff like that. I mean, it is extremely obvious in a lot of them that it's just a lens flare. And if something like that was that close where you could see it with the naked eye or through a cell phone camera, believe me, we'd be having a lot more things to worry about here on this planet than just a couple of earthquakes. And like you said, I mean, amateur astronomers would be seeing this thing through their telescopes, easily. So no, I don't buy all that. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to Planet X and other planetary astrological bodies being found and in weird elliptical orbits around the solar system, yeah, I mean that's definitely a possibility. But I mean, as we could see with Planet 9, I guess it would technically be Planet X, since they killed Pluto. We haven't even seen it. They're just basing its existence off of the gravitational waves that it's putting off. So we haven't even seen that. But yeah, yep, I'm with everyone on this.
And
no Nibiru.
I gotta boo the Pluto thing. I'm always gonna boo that. Boo! How you gonna do Pluto that way? But you gotta think, gentlemen. Really, honestly, deep down, and everybody else out there listening, we just don't know. None of us been to the moon. I mean, we could debate, did people go to the moon? Did we land on the moon? And people will be so definitive in this. Flat Earth, round Earth, cube Earth, triangle Earth, all these kinds of things. Nibiru, this other planet, Planet X, all these kinds of things. And we will be so definitive in our opinions. And granted, a lot of the YouTube videos, will make you think okay, only on YouTube you will see these kinds of things. But you can't negate it. You can't, you really can't go, no, you can't get really definitive off of some foolery with a lot of things that are out there. And everything that we talk about, everything that we, theorize about, is always that fact. It's always that fact that, we really don't know. There's a lot of things out there that we can look at and go that's a bunch of BS, and all these kinds of things. But at the end of the day, that doesn't mean everything we see. I always go back to the fact that, extraterrestrial can land a UFO in my backyard right now. I could go out there and film this thing in real time Here we go. We got live Facebook, we got live YouTube, whatever it is out there, and people would still go, "Ah, man, that's some Photoshop stuff. That's effects and all these kinds of things." But the reality of it is there an actual Nibiru? Is there a Planet X? Is there these things? Is some of these things we're seeing, we've grown so accustomed to seeing a lot of fake things that we can go like, that's a bunch of fake stuff, that we sit there and automatically knee-jerk reaction go, these things are fake. This is unreal. And don't put any kind of thought other than that knee-jerk reaction on these things, because it's got to be real. I mean, what do you think, Johnny?
Well, they talk about Nibiru when they say it's near the sun. Now, Earth is 92 million miles away from the sun, and we have broad daylight because of that. So if it was near the sun, we would not see it then.
No, John, adding to that, one of the common kind of explanations I get for us not being able to see it is that it's on the other side of the sun. Now, okay, that's fine, that's fair dues. Can't see it then because at night we face away and daytime the light's there, but you have to appreciate we go in an orbit around the sun. So if it is on the other side of the sun, that can only hold true for 6 months of the year. Because by rights then, when you get round to the other side, unless it's really going in tandem with you, it just happens to be at the other side of the sun when you get to where it was, well, that argument doesn't have a leg to stand on. What do you think, Johnny?
Nah, definitely, Kev. If new Nibiru is out there, we'll see it someday. If it is that 3,600 year thing that we're talking about, we'll see it someday. We won't see it, Kev, but I'm sure one generation will.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there will be an extra planetary body, call it Planet X or call it the Sumerian Nibiru, whatever road you want to take. I mean, Planet 9, Planet 10, whatever. I do think there's something out there because there certainly seems to be something tugging on those bigger outer planets. And it's those perturbations, that tugging kind of motion where you see the kind of rocking of the planet through a telescope that tells you there's something pulling on it. So, Ken, you talk about the unknown unknowns as well. And like you said, I mean, have we even been to the moon? I mean, how do we even know? What kind of knowledge do we have really about how planets and everything work, apart from what we're told by people like NASA? We probably have absolutely no idea what's going on out there.
Oh, there's no doubt. And no doubt. That's why I got to throw my hands in the air on a lot of it and just theorize. But, but I do see the 50-50 kind of information that comes out. Some things are just totally, blatantly crazy that you go like, what? No, that's not this, or there's no possibility of this. But at the end of the day, there's that other side of the coin that makes you go, because we all want to be opinionated. We all want to know. So we can only go by our life's experiences. It's like, traveling to the moon. I'll use this as an example for the rest of things. I mean, flat Earth, triangle Earth, cube Earth, whatever it is, these different kinds of extreme things that really get people so, emotionally involved in, the discussion about it, which is a good thing. I think that's a good thing. But, but I have to throw my hands in the air and go like, I really don't know because I've never been to space. I've never been to the moon. So how do I really know? It's like school shootings, a lot of things. I wasn't there. So how do I really know? I'm only taking the information that's out there. And a lot of it I know is BS. I can smell it, walk like a duck, quack like a duck, all these kinds of things. Must be a duck on a lot of things. But at the end of the day, we just don't know. And I think that's where we need to get as a civilization. It's like, we don't have to believe the most craziest of things out there, but sometimes the most craziest of things have a probability because we just don't know. But we want to be opinionated so much at times that we will talk about it. We'll laugh about it. We'll joke about it. But, we really don't know. How many of us out there really are looking through those telescopes, even amateur astronomers, all this stuff, looking out there to look at and follow these things. The only information we're getting is through YouTube, NASA, all these sites where we look at these things and then we analyze and then we theorize about these kinds of things. I mean, and that's where it is. I mean, you really got to, we really got to, on any of the woo that's out there, I don't care how crazy it is, we do have to come to a conclusion within ourselves that we don't know a lot of these things, and that a lot of these things could be possible. I mean, that's just my opinion, that's all I'm saying, guys, is, about a lot of it, because I'm not looking through a telescope. So I don't know. I haven't followed Nibiru. I'm just learning that Nibiru isn't Planet X by Scotty. He's like, oh, it's not the same thing. And I'm like, well, I thought from what I've seen, people have called Nibiru was Planet X. I'm like, see, here is my knowledge. Just an average guy looking at the internet, looking at that type of information, because I'm not looking through a telescope. I'm not following these things. And that's what all of us have to do so that we open ourselves up to actually learn.
Yeah, I mean, Planet X, I mean, I consider it Planet X is what they call Planet 9 now, which was the new sort of discovery, right? That they... this new astronomical body that's coming in this weird orbit.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, well, that's Nibiru, and I'm like, no, that's not Nibiru, because Nibiru is on a whole different sort of time scale, right? It's a different different time frame that it's supposed to come through.
Yeah.
So what was it?
I guess
what was it?
30.
3,600 years, something like that was Nibiru. And
it's like the second part of the binary system. They say we're a binary star system, and this would be like our binary star or whatever.
Yeah, and Planet 9 is like on a 20, was it like something, or no, it's like a 20 something thousand year orbit.
Oh, is it that much longer than?
Yeah, it's
wow,
a huge,
that's significant.
Yeah, it's like 20,000 years. I'll have to look it up, but
holy smokes, that's huge, dude.
Oh, what is it? Is it 13?
Oh, there it is, 13,000.
13,000. Okay.
Still significant, almost 3 times that of Nibiru, right?
Yeah, and it's on a weird elliptical orbit, and even when it's at its closest point, in the orbit, it's still farther out than Pluto. So it's not technically coming like into the solar system, like cutting through planets and stuff like that. So I don't think it's going to really have too much of an effect on anything, even at its closest point.
Well, I consider Pluto a planet. They can go eat it.
Yeah.
And so I will go with Planet 10. Yeah, the whole Planet X thing, that's where the X came from.
Yeah,
right?
That's why I call it Planet X, because if they wouldn't have nixed Pluto out of the number thing, it would actually be Planet 10.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, as far as that's concerned, I'm like I said, Kev, you and I think we mutually agree that, yes, is there another planet out there, Nibiru? Absolutely. I think so. They really don't have any clue as far as the timing, or maybe they do, and they're just putting this out there to start to discredit people for what could be perhaps a significant event here in the future. I don't know, but hour number 1's done. Hour 2 on the way. Our Freaky Friday on your protection from deception, truthfrequencyradio.com. We will be right back.
This is the Truth Frequency Radio Network.
We are TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
I wanna know, are you true? Can you woo, 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 woo? They don't thug it like I do. Can you woo, 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 woo? I wanna know, are you true? Can you woo, 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 woo? They don't run this like we do. Can you woo, woo, woo?
Is it true? Is it deja vu? Is it you? Can I come through and kick it with you? Can we woo woo woo? Sniff a little ooh ooh. Don't really matter cause you're still my boo boo. We can slide out, ride out, back to my hideout.
Welcome back, folks. Hour number 2 of Freaky Friday, right here on your protection from deception, Truth Frequency Radio, truthfrequencyradio.com. I'm Joe Joseph. We got Kev Baker in the house. Johnny Whistles had to sign off. It was past his bedtime, and I get it. So, Whistler, sweet dreams, my man. Ken Webb is here. Scotty Lopez. We were talking about Nibiru, Planet X, and all that kind of good stuff. But why, my friends? Oh, and also, folks, don't forget to check out my work as well over at thedailysheeple.com. Hashtag wake the flock up. Start putting that out there for everybody, let's wake up everybody, because people need to be woken up. It's time to get up, folks. It's time to get up. And I've got a story that'll help people get up. We're going to change gears a little bit. Not Bigfoot. Oh, no. What we're going to get is nose-picking masturbators are terrorizing the New York City subway.
Oh, my God.
It happens, dude. They
have no shame.
They have no shame. What is happening? Now, if that ain't freaky, I don't know what is. I'm just saying. Anybody that's ever ridden the subway in New York knows that it is I don't know, what would you call it? It's not like a circus sideshow because it's really like the main event. But it's so weird. It is.
I've seen that, Joe. I've seen that on the BART in San Francisco in the Bay Area. Where these people, no, seriously, you start to go down the escalator and you see somebody whacking off or something like that down at the bottom. And you're like, what is going through these people's minds? I mean, what you do in your own house, okay, that's fine. I mean, you handle your business, whatever you're doing. But here you out in the open, and I read that article too, and I'm sitting there thinking, like you talk with New York City, I'm like, oh my, what is wrong with people? What goes through somebody's mind to make them sit there and look at somebody in the eye and they whacking or they picking and digging for gold? I'm just like, oh my goodness, okay, what? And people don't care. They got no shame, brothers. They got no shame.
Now, in this instance, this guy was doing it at the same time. That is that takes a lot of dexterity. It's like a skills challenge. Let me see if I can get this magic nose goblet at the same time I pleasure it myself.
Was I'm patting my head and rubbing my belly at the same time. Oh my goodness gracious, that is insane.
Yeah. It's almost like the only way I can describe it is. Have you guys ever seen like the People of Walmart websites? It's kind of like that on steroids. It really is when you go on the New York City subway. It's just how do you explain it? It just is. It's its own thing. But damn. So yeah, that, my friends, is a truly freaky story. I just thought we should be. Everybody enjoy that. So now that we're all awake, what is it that you want to talk about? Bigfoot? Is that right?
Yes, we
instead of whacking and nose picking to Bigfoot, only on Freaky Friday.
Right. Kev, where do you want to go?
I joined this party late. I'm rolling about laughing, honestly.
I gotta know, man.
Before the break, let's go Halloween, stuff like that. Let's get
spooky. That's right.
I come back and you're talking about people playing with themselves on a train. Wow.
So you wanted freaky. I gave you freaky. It's kind of Halloweenish, I guess,
This is all because I derailed him earlier.
1-1.
Bigfoot, Scott.
Yes, let's go ahead and go Bigfoot. This is from Fox News, actually, the big boys. Bigfoot reportedly sighted in Northern California. Pictures go viral. The legendary Bigfoot and other creatures like it have been spotted near Northern California Lake, according to a paranormal investigator. Jeffrey Gonzalez, a self-described paranormal expert, said he heard about the sighting from a local farmer who said he saw the creature and 5 others running on his ranch near Avocado Lake. One of them, which was extremely tall, had a pig over its shoulder, Gonzalez said in the comments obtained by Fox 26, a Fox News affiliate. And the 5 scattered, and the one with the pig was running so fast it didn't see an irrigation pipe, and it tripped with the pig flying over. So Bigfoot tripped on an irrigation pipe while carrying a pig. According to his Facebook page, Gonzalez is a talk show host and an investigator at Paranormal Central. In addition to being a technician at AT&T, he also founded the Sanger Paranormal Society. Gonzalez said that the sighting is not that uncommon, with 3 additional Bigfoot sightings in the past 5 years, all located in East Fresno County. I would have never guessed in a million years that you would have told me there were Bigfoot on Shields or Ashland Avenue, right? So I want to know what's going on. Is it for real? Gonzalez added. He recounted 2 other stories, including one from a woman who said her 2 sons saw Bigfoot in their orchard, and one from a man who saw 5 creatures in the same orchard. What are the odds of 3 people, 3 different families who don't know each other within a radius of 2 to 3 miles come and tell me what they witness, and it matches up, Gonzalez said. The images are reminiscent of the famous Patterson-Gimlin film footage from the 1960s. In the footage, Roger Patterson and his partner Robert Gimlin shot a short motion picture the filmmakers have said was Bigfoot. Experts have bandied about for years whether the footage was real or fake, though Patterson maintained it was real until his death in 1972. So yeah, I mean, pretty interesting. We got a couple of photos here that I'll drop in the chat here shortly. But so what do you guys think?
When you get multiple witnesses like that, I mean, you have to really take a bit more notice of what people are saying here, and that really adds to the whole mystery, because usually you get random sightings by maybe at best a group of people at one time, but when you get multiple groups of people, or in this case 3 different families all reporting roughly the same thing, I really do find that quite interesting.
Yeah, and we are talking about Northern California, which the whole Northwest area, that's pretty much Bigfoot territory. So,
well, I was going to ask you, Scott, because I was watching Rob Lowe, the Hollywood actor. He's got a TV show called The Lowe Files. Now, he goes out with his 2 sons, and he basically gets into the woo. He investigates the paranormal. He goes looking for Sasquatch up near Portland, I believe he goes. But he also goes looking for the mountain ape. Now, this is just, for me, another word given to the Sasquatch, the Bigfoot. But I believe this is in Oklahoma, somewhere like that. Now, wherever it was, when they went hunting or trying to find the mountain ape, there was definitely noises coming from something that I certainly couldn't attribute to any other animal that I know. And these investigators were telling Rob and his family that that's the noise, allegedly, that the mountain ape or the Sasquatch give off. So what's these mountain apes they talk about? Because that was kind of a new one on me.
See, that was what, Oklahoma? So, that's really close to, my my geographic location of where I live here in the Midwest. They go by many names, right? It depends on where you're located in the United States. I mean, if you're down south by Florida, they call him the skunk ape, right? And he has a whole bunch of Bigfoot has a whole bunch of different names, depending on where you're located in like the Appalachian Mountains, and there's all kinds of different names for him. So I don't know. I mean, this could probably just be another iteration of Bigfoot, located in this region. But another thing what I kind of want to go back to is, this guy was talking about how these Bigfoot were being spotted, from what it sounds like, in a more urban area, or an area that's a little more populated by humans. And it kind of got me thinking, we've had all those forest fires going on in Northern California. It makes you wonder if some of these Bigfoot are being displaced by the fire and they're being forced into contact with people because their habitat is being destroyed by the wildfire. I mean, that's kind of an angle I think people need to go with on that, because I mean, if we're dealing with an undiscovered species of some sort of primate, something like that, of course a massive wildfire is going to wreak havoc on its habitat. So maybe there's going to be more sightings because these things are looking to relocate or trying to escape these fires.
Wow, I'd never even thought about that, Scott. And that's a really great shout, because if they do live in that environment 24/7, they're of this dimension, they're 3D physical entities in this realm, then you're right. I mean, their natural habitat, their environment that they live in, that most people see them and experience them in that environment, most of that's gone now. So where does that leave the Sasquatch, the Bigfoot, whatever name you want to put on it? And that's going to be interesting to see if we do see a spate of new sightings in more urban areas.
Yeah, if we see an uptick, in Bigfoot sightings and like a lot of this coming out in the news and stuff, then I think that's going to lend a lot of credence to the fact that we are dealing with an undiscovered species that lives deep in the forests of Northern California and the Pacific Northwest, and that you get a wildfire that massive. I mean, you see how much land was just burned, how many acres was burned. It was thousands and thousands of acres were burned. And if you start seeing an increase in sightings, that means you're probably dealing with a species that's been displaced.
Absolutely. And if there isn't that spate of sightings, it could be a number of things. It could tragically mean that they didn't get out of there, or something we've speculated about often in the past as well, that they may well be interdimensional. And by that, I mean, they don't reside here on a full-time basis. They come and they go. I don't know what it is about these natural energies that must build up in wooded, forested areas, but you get the stories of the Sasquatch there, you've got stories of fairies, really weird places, forests. And of course, we were talking about all the people that go missing from the national forests in the US as well. Strange places. But again, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Will we see more Sasquatch? Will there be less sightings? Or will they just have shifted and people see them somewhere else now? Ken, we're talking Bigfoot here, man. You love all these unknowns like the Mothman, the Bigfoot. And Scott came up with a good point there, that these fires in California and up into Oregon, that's going to displace a lot of these Sasquatch or Bigfoot, whatever name you want to put on it, if they actually do live there.
I hadn't thought about that. That's a pretty interesting thing. Right, exactly. It would displace them unless they're interdimensional beings. That's because I always thought, like, people would pose the question a lot of times about Bigfoot. Well, why haven't we captured one? Why hasn't one been captured, killed, where you could show the body? And the one theory that I would come across, or that I would think about, would be it being some kind of interdimensional, being in and out, or maybe it's their superpower, not being able to be caught, maybe invisibility or some kind of thing like that. I mean, if we're going to go woo with it, we might as well go woo. I mean, and that would be the reality of the woo on a Sasquatch. It's like, why hasn't one been captured? Why hasn't one been, killed? And here's the body. Here's the definitive proof of that. It'd be like an interdimensional being, or maybe that's its superpower. Maybe that's the one thing that it can do. Is like, not be able to be, trapped or anything like that because of some superpower. I don't know, man. What do you guys think about it? I mean, when you want to really get deep into woo on the Sasquatch, what would be some superpowers that this thing could possess? And
Well,
that would be the reasoning, the theories behind why you haven't captured one or why you haven't been able to kill one. And here's the the definitive proof.
Well, I think I had brought up a story on Freaky Friday before where a guy had actually shot a Bigfoot, but when he shot it, it disappeared. And so, what if when they die, they teleport out of here, right? So you're never going to find them because once they've been either destroyed or killed in this dimension, they travel back to whatever dimension they're from. And that's why you never find any remnants of a Bigfoot. But as long as they're alive, they can exist in this dimension.
No, that's interesting. That's very interesting, Scotty. Yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing. That's where you got to throw your hands up in the air and go like, people who definitively say Bigfoot doesn't exist and all these kinds of things. It's like, you haven't been everywhere. We haven't been everywhere. We haven't been around the world. We don't know. And there's so much freaky woo out there that's unexplainable that we don't know about, that there's so many theories we can, impose on the existence of a lot of these things. I mean, is it fake? Could it be fake? Yes, it absolutely could. But there's also the other side of the coin. We can't be so extreme as to just totally write it off because it's other dimensions, other timelines. I mean, what Bigfoot put here by aliens or the existence of things that were of the past, of the past, thousands of years ago that happen to be still around. I mean, it's like we really don't know. That's why we theorize about this thing on Freaky Fridays. We have to think about it.
My mom had a very interesting theory about Bigfoot, and her theory is that they're a slave race, beamed down by other aliens, like they're being controlled as a slave race by aliens to collect resources. And the reason why you don't ever find them is because they get beamed back up by the aliens who are their masters.
Wow, I like that. And I love that out-the-box thinking. And what if it's something completely different? Maybe along the alien lines, but we were talking about how our brains love to find patterns and something familiar, Scott, right? So what if people are actually coming across something totally, here's the word, alien to them, something they've never, ever witnessed before anywhere, something they can't even explain? Maybe the brain then actually gives them the image or projects the image of the Sasquatch onto that, because whatever it is they're actually seeing, the Sasquatch image that their brain is decoding now is far more palatable than what is really there. It's always worth a thought, Scotty.
Yeah, like pareidolia, right?
Yeah.
It's just trying to make sense out of something it's never seen before, so it tries to associate the closest thing that it can make sense to it.
And because everyone's heard of the Bigfoot, at least one story or another at some time, then maybe the old brain that's been programmed just to go, Bigfoot, looks like a big giant ape, nothing to see here, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
No, I got my California tale of the Bigfoot, my sighting.
Yes.
I was living off the grid, and I'm living in my little minibus that I converted, into a little home and everything. And in the middle of the night, I heard something outside of the bus, and I'm like looking. I'm like, what in the world? I wake up and I look out, and we had 50-gallon water drums that we collect rainwater all around the top of the mountain on this off the grid spot. And there was something big and furry that was out there getting water out of this thing, right? And the first thing that I thought when I looked at it, I'm thinking bear, right? You're thinking bear, but I'm like, the friend's property that it was, he's got like 10, 15 dogs up there on this spot. So there's no animals that really come up into this vicinity without the dogs going off. No dogs barking. And generally they're barking all night, running across the mountains and all this stuff down by Lake Berryessa. It's a big lake out there, and this is where we were living off the grid. And this thing, I'm just like kind of half asleep, half awake, and I'm sitting here looking at this thing out there at the 50-gallon drum where I was collecting rainwater outside my bus. And it's out there getting water, and it's just sitting there. And I'm like, and I woke up the chick I was with, at the time. And I was like, hey, look at what it's a Bigfoot, and all this kind of stuff, And then she's like, huh, and she's like, look, and I was like, what is that? Is it a bear? What in the world is that? And I'm sitting there thinking Bigfoot, and I didn't realize at the time of a lot of Bigfoot sightings up there. I looked it up online the next day about Bigfoot sightings up in the time. Just that's how much that it really struck me more so than being a bear out there, and because it had the moonlight and everything, and the thing went down the hill, and all I could see was a big mass. It was a big mass of a shadow, so I couldn't discern whether it was standing upright, whether it was laying down, trying to get in the water, on all fours, or any of this kind of stuff. And I never have been able to, it could have been a bear. I mean, it really could have been a bear. I just thought it was awkward, that we had, 10, 15 dogs up on this ridge where we had, it was spread out over, it was over about 50 acres, something like that of land up there. But I kept thinking, I was like Bigfoot, and it made me, it inspired me enough the next day to actually look. I'm like, Lake Berryessa, there's any Bigfoot sightings up here, and they had all kinds of Bigfoot sightings up there, and I was like, man, that could have been one. Why didn't I get up and actually go out of there? But I had this, I don't know, this numbness in my body at the time when I'm looking at it that I did not get up, and I did not go out, and I was armed to the teal. I was actually SKS, pump shotguns. I had plenty of ammunition that I shouldn't have been scared to get up and actually go out of the bus to confront this thing that's right, within, 20 feet of where I was sleeping. But I didn't. I just had this numbness where I just sit there and all looking at this thing. And, and I had video cameras, multiple video cameras that I could have picked up. I could have did all this stuff. The girl was with, she was a photographer and all this, a videographer and all this stuff. Neither one of us picked. It was just like this numbness feeling where we just sit there and we observe this thing. I don't know, a few minutes, and that's all it was. Went down the hill. Don't know if it stood upright, walked downhill, or was on all fours. It was a very strange experience. I mean, just visually and bodily, of not doing things that normally that, I would have done, grab the camera, let me film this thing, or, let me grab the gun. What's this thing out here? Or any of those kinds of things. So I never knew, but it did push me to look the next day just up at Lake Berryessa in California to see about Bigfoot sightings.
Isn't that one of the traits of kind of Bigfoot sightings too, that people have like weird feelings and stuff when they encounter the Bigfoot? Like they kind of feel numb, and they sort of they get this like weird vibe when the Bigfoot is around them. That's kind of interesting, that you brought that up, because I think that's a sort of a reoccurring kind of common trait in a lot of Bigfoot sightings. Have you heard about that, Kev?
Yeah, it's definitely something that one of our guests on the prior shows have talked about. And she was on talking about the wild men of the UK, and that's our variation of it. And that, to me, almost hints upon maybe some kind of vortex opening, something energetic. And I'm reading here, it's kind of theories on what the Bigfoot may be. And one here says, is the Sasquatch a forest spirit? What if this creature doesn't exist in the natural world at all? Is it just luck and happenstance that only people who ever see Bigfoot are totally unprepared to document the encounter? It's an odd paradox that a creature so secretive that has not even been properly documented by science seems to readily reveal itself to moving cars, hunters wearing orange camouflage, and teenagers wandering along dirt roads. Of course, even in this day and age where people everywhere is carrying a smartphone with a camera attached, nobody who claims to spot Bigfoot ever snaps a picture. Sure, they're startled and shaken up during the encounter, but during tsunamis and earthquakes and street riots, people manage to capture footage. So why none of the Sasquatch? Is it possible that Bigfoot is a forest spirit, a supernatural guardian of the earth and the woodlands? Might this be why witnesses report being mesmerized by encounters? And might this be why so few have the wherewithal to go to their cell phone camera? Indeed, in some parts of North America, Native Americans regard Bigfoot as a supernatural being and often a messenger of the natural world. This is similar to the way the indigenous people of Nepal and Tibet view the Yeti, as a spiritual entity. You know, that might explain why Ken kind of felt out of place and so many others get a weird feeling around the Yeti, the Yowie, the Bigfoot, the snake ape or the skunk ape, the mountain ape, whatever you want to call it. Join us on the other side for more of Freaky Friday.
Real people, real radio.
Initiating the truth frequency.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome back, everybody. It is halfway, or just over the halfway point here at Freaky Friday, and I'm absolutely, I am so happy. I am just because I remember now where I was going when Kev Baker derailed me at the start of the show.
It was only an hour ago, only an hour and a half late.
It was only, but hey, it better late than never, right? So I was talking about how I feel old now because of some of these movies or productions or whatever that I've seen, and I talked to some of my coworkers and they're like, it's before my time. Well, I was geeking out the other day on Netflix, which we were talking about during the break, just how much they're pumping into their new productions, which, I mean, it's like, Ken, I'm like you, Ken. You can't, I'm not one to praise corporations, but man, Netflix has put out some really good stuff. And one of the series they've brought back is Voltron. And I just binge watched it over the last 2 days, the 4 seasons. Oh man. And that's why I can't stand watching these things when the series aren't finished yet, because it left me just hanging on that cliff. Ugh. And I got to wait for the 5th season to come out. Damn it. So, yeah, it was just one of those things, man. Voltron. They brought Voltron back. And, of course, he'd never heard of it. And I'm like, oh, God, you don't know what you're missing.
That was my childhood.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, like I said, I remember waking up for school, and sometimes I had to labor through the Voltron, the one with the cars. Remember the one with, like, the 20 cars, dude? Mm-hmm. That one kind of stunk. But, you know, I was always kind of preferable to the whole lion thing. But, damn, they brought it back with a vengeance. And it's been great, complete with the cheesy 80s Jap animation humor. So, yeah, it was great to watch it. But thank you. Now I have recovered from that derailment, and I feel so much better. So are we now we're done talking about are we done talking about Sasquatch?
Well, I have a story about an enormous glowing ball.
Dude, yeah, I saw that. What's up with that?
Okay, it says an enormous glowing ball is seen over northern Siberia. And they're saying it was from It was from fuel from 4
Right.
Russian rockets that
Now
were tested.
let me stop you right there for a second. Do you remember the spiral over Norway?
Yes.
Okay, and when that happened, it was also caused by a failed missile.
Well, it's a missile test, and what happens is when they test these ICBMs, right?
Yeah.
They're testing how successful the rocket can go, but they're not to keep the rocket from flying into other countries' airspace or whatever. They intentionally put these rockets into a spiral. That way, it burns out all the fuel, and that's what creates a spiral pattern. That way, the rocket.
They're doing that on purpose.
Yes, that's an intentional thing that they do to keep the rocket contained within a certain space. That way it doesn't fly off into, like I said, another country's airspace or something like that.
I see.
And you know, the rocket is loaded with all of the fuel necessary for it to make a flight wherever it's going to go, but they have to burn that excess fuel off, so they put it into a spiral like that, and that's why it creates that spiral pattern, because the rocket's just sitting there spinning and spinning in the air until the fuel is gone, and so that's what creates that effect. But
it's a pretty unbelievable visual effect that takes place when they do that. Yeah,
it is. It's wild. I mean, you can definitely see why people freak out when they see that, because you have I mean, it just creates a spectacular show in the sky. I mean, this rocket's pretty much on the edge of space, and it's shooting all of this rocket. You know, its exhaust is when they get up into that high of the atmosphere, the air pressure gets lower and lower and lower and lower, and then until there's like almost no air pressure whatsoever, because it's almost in a vacuum. And that's why the plume coming out of the back of the rocket, it balloons out and it looks like a giant orb almost. It's a very surreal look to it. But in Russia, it says Russia has been hit by a wave of reports of a giant UFO in the sky, with spectacular pictures of an enormous glowing ball illuminating northern Siberia. And the pictures from this are spectacular. That would freak me out if I saw something like that. It's crazy. And it's also coupled with the northern lights, so that makes it even more weird looking. And it says, while the source of the light has not been confirmed, some have suggested that it was the trace of 4 rockets launched by the Russian military that caused this extraordinary phenomena in the night sky. So they actually technically have not confirmed what caused it. But that's just the speculation. I don't know, man. That's some wild stuff. I think there's even some video of it. And but we've had sightings like this here in the U.S. There was
why over Russia so much though? What do you think?
Because they like to test rockets, man.
Okay, all right, we'll go with that.
They like to test rockets, and they have a whole bunch of. they have such a huge landmass, a huge area that they can do this over. That look how much area of Siberia is completely uninhabited by humans, right? Russia has the means to fire rockets over their own territory and not have to worry about hitting a city or anything like that. So that's probably why you see so much of this testing going on over Russia, because they can do it.
Russia also has the means to open stargates too. I'm just saying.
But we've seen stuff like this over, was it off the coast of California, because that's where we do our testing.
Right.
We can't do the testing really over the United States, because pretty much most of the United States has some sort of populated area, within. There's really no area you can do a missile test like that over the U.S. without having to worry about the chance that a rocket would go off course and hit a town or something like that. So we do most of our testing over the ocean, out in the Pacific, and that's why you don't really see it too much in the U.S. But you do see it off the coast of California, and I think there was a similar sighting like this in Florida. I think it was around the Miami area. So, they're doing testing over the Atlantic and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely in Russia, you see this. And of course, they see it in Norway and Scandinavia because these rockets are so high up in the atmosphere. You can see it from another country, and they're located pretty close to Russia. So
Norway was a Stargate. Definitely a Stargate.
No, I just explained what it was, Kev. There's a logical explanation.
No, not for the Norway one. The Anunnaki were arriving.
I thought it was the Chitauri. I thought.
Been the Chitauri. It might well have been that faction of the reptilian horde. Who knows, Joe?
That's what I'm thinking. They've been known. They've been known to use the spiral staircase.
We're talking about Russia there, and it always intrigues me because we talk about Paperclip and Van Braun and all the other Nazis going to America and the rocket programs and the mind control stuff like that. But I would love to have somebody that has a deep knowledge of all the Russian kind of science that was going on after World War II, when they took their cut of the Nazi brain power as well, because I'm sure they've got technologies over there just as fantastic as HARP and all the rocket stuff and all that kind of stuff we've got on over here. Who knows what's going on? You guys nailed it. I mean, there's that much kind of barren land where nobody's out there to witness what's going on. Scott, I can only dare to imagine what Russia are playing about with.
Yeah, and remember when we had Duncan Campbell on Freaky Friday, he sort of enlightened us on the fact that during Paperclip, it was us that took the rocket scientists, but it was Russia that took a lot of the scientists that were doing research into
psi warfare.
Psi warfare, psychological warfare, and remote viewing, and that area of science, and as opposed to like conventional rocketry and stuff like that. So it makes you wonder what kind of things Russia was working on with basically their variant of Paperclip.
Exactly. And we've got that film over here, The Men That Stare at Goats, based on a true story. And I'm sure that the Russian papers, those classified papers that hold all of their secrets, they're probably more secretive than we are over here in the West, for goodness sake. Who honestly knows what was going on before the breakup of the Soviet Union, and then who honestly knows what's going on today in Russia and all the other satellite states around about it? And of course, at the time of the breakup of the Soviet Union, there was a big fear about all the nuclear weapons and nuclear material that might be over there. I'd be far more worried about the kind of technologies and the ideas that the Nazis transferred there at the end of the war, Scott.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know.
One thing I did see good from Russia, and I think China are doing it as well. I mean, China have got a lot of ancient pyramids on their landmass, but definitely seen the Russians building pyramids, and what they were doing was they were doing experiments around about them and inside them. And one of the ones that I heard about, I think it was David Wilcock was talking about a good few years ago now in his Enigma 2012 presentation, but he was showing experiment papers or the actual experiments that were done over there. And just for example, Scott, they would have tomatoes that were growing inside this pyramid that they had built themselves. It didn't look like the Great Pyramid. It was more cone-shaped, far more vertical in nature. But they would grow seeds from the same stalk, some inside, some outside. And the ones that were growing inside, they grew maybe 5-10 times larger and far more plentiful than the ones outside. Similarly, water. I think it was water that was polluted in some way. They put some outside the pyramid, some inside. Again, over a matter of time, when they went and tested the one inside, it eventually became good water. So it just shows you that there's obviously some kind of physics, some kind of toroidal physics that's going on with these pyramids. And it makes me wonder if that's the kind of thing that the Nazis were teaching them about back in the day.
Yeah, it's weird. And here's another sort of thing to think about. You know how lately we've had this story coming out of Cuba with this sonic weapon, right? That's been used on diplomats at the embassy, and it's created what is it giving them like brain damage and destroying their hearing and just doing all kinds of weird stuff to them. Well, we're talking about Cuba here, which was an ally of Russia during the Cold War. Could we be looking at some of this weird Russian technology when it comes to like these, the Psy War, or, maybe frequency warfare or something like that? Could this be something that maybe they still have, that they're able to utilize in Cuba, and they're actually utilizing it against our embassy? It makes you wonder.
Look at Desert Storm, Scotty. Look at Desert Storm. I mean, where they're putting out the frequencies and make people puke, making them give up, go docile enough to. I mean, and this is back during Desert Storm. All of the information that came out, and all the reports of, all of the Iraqi troops just all of a sudden just coming up, putting their hands up, going docile. I mean, and look at all the frequency weapons they have that could. I mean, we've seen them testing. I've seen different tests on different documentaries and things where they show them testing like beaming weapon and frequencies through, like, holding up, just like a mattress and things like that, beaming it through till it heats them up enough to where they can't take anymore. All of these kinds of weapons that they have, all the sonic weapons, all of the frequency weapons that they have, they do. I've been kind of like, yeah, I could see that, making people crap their pants, making them puke and vomit, from the frequencies. I mean, this is where we are. The weapons that they have out there, that it's not just so. I mean, if Cuba's using it on, embassy personnel and people out there like that, just imagine the stuff that, like, that all of the big ballers out there in the world have, all the things that they can make you do, make you think, putting transmissions into your mind, making you think, making you hear, making you see. I mean, we're just that is, I think, honestly, I think that is just like little pebbles of things that they can do to people out there just through, I mean, putting through, what was it? What was the Jesse Ventura conspiracy theories that show that he did, where he showed the one scientist guy who could just like put thoughts into people's heads through the little device he had. I mean, think about it. And I've seen so much actual stuff that they show you that they can do. So I always go back to the things that we don't even know. All the reports back, like I said, from the Persian Gulf War, where, they were putting in their weapons coming out, they were getting sick, vomiting, all of these kinds of things from the weapons that they were testing. I think that was a testing ground, the Persian Gulf War back in the 90s. That was a very a testing ground for a lot of those weapons that they turned around and started using. So if Cuba's using it, this here's a small country, even though they got Russian back and all these kinds of, even back in the day, the Soviet Union and everything. I think that is just, that's just the tip of the iceberg on like all of the other things that are going on that they can do. That makes you think a lot of the people out there who say that they, that they have all of these, frequencies coming in and bother them day after day. You've interviewed them, Kev, on your show, a lot of cats that were out there telling their stories about, being, individual targeted people and all of these kinds of things, and all of the of going in different locations and having these feelings of like, these certain sound waves and these different waves that are making them sick, making them on edge and all of these things. It makes it more probable, I think. And I mean, really the weapons that they have, and that's not even the unknown unknowns. That is the, the kind of known unknowns, to us, is all of these kinds of different types of weapons and everything. So yeah, I thought that was really crazy, the thing that was going on down in Cuba, but that's got to be, it's got to be, something that it is known unknown kind of things, or the known knowns that it's all theorized about. But you got to imagine, like, high frequency stuff, the things that they're doing to all of us all the time, whether it's a soft cushion kind of weapons that they're doing to us to make us docile, or they're making us think this way, that way, feel this way, feel that way. It digs down into the woo. What you think, Scott?
Well, just recently, within, I think it was the past week or so, supposedly the Associated Press received an audio file that supposedly is the sound of this sonic weapon that was being used in Cuba, and somebody put up the file on YouTube.
Scott, you need to be careful if you're playing this, okay?
No, I'm not going to play it. I'm not going to play it.
Clyde Lewis played this on his show, and he played it a number of times, and people were phoning up, and they were saying that they recognized this noise. Some of them were. I
recognized it too.
Yeah, some were being affected by it, and by the end of the show, I mean, Clyde's an experienced guy. He's been doing this for years. He does a 5-hour show, and once it got to the last couple of hours or so, he was just absolutely wiped out. He felt lethargic, tired, weak, and they could only put it down to the fact that he'd been playing this clip over and over again.
And now thinking back, whenever I played it, I got a really bad headache the next day. So it was really weird. And
no, the thing that surprises me most about the Cuba thing, guys, is the fact that we've learned about it. With it being diplomats and an embassy involved, especially the US, when you would think they would kind of try to keep this on the quiet, but it's actually been very, very public, this story. It was doing the rounds for a couple of weeks there, but I've not heard anything on it recently, Scott, but it really surprised me that they were talking about this in the mainstream.
Yeah, it does. It is surprising that they would talk about something like this in the mainstream. Now, I can describe what it sounds like to me, because this is what's really interesting about it is, I have tinnitus, right? Ringing in the ears. I've suffered from that for a long time, ever since I was young, And to me, it just sounds like a very loud version of the tinnitus that I always hear all the time. It almost sounds like the exact same frequency that I hear ringing in my ears constantly all the time.
Funny you say that, because Dr. Eric Karlstrom is the expert we have coming on once a month to talk about all the targeted individuals, gang stalking, all the technology involved. But the last show we done, he was quoting from a book. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it was basically the instructions for these teams on the ground. And one of the things that it kept on hammering home to the operatives involved is that the techniques that they employ and use, you have to keep them on the right side of being deniable. Now, for example, Scott says this sounds like tinnitus. And if you go to the doctor and you start complaining about hearing this noise that we have the clip of, we're not going to play it, but imagine you go to a doctor with symptoms that basically are everything that tinnitus would present as well. Well, that makes it deniable then, because any doctor is just going to say, well, you've got tinnitus, but is it really tinnitus? Well, that's how they keep their weapons and their tactics and their techniques deniable, Scott, because it's just kind of normal stuff that can be explained away as something else.
Yeah, and the thing is that, it seems like lately, over the past, I would say 15, 20 years or so, everybody seems to have some sort of variant of tinnitus, or almost everyone you talk to experiences some kind of ringing in their ears. Now that makes you wonder, what is the cause of that? And I think we're starting to get into a very interesting topic here, right?
Yeah.
Does this coincide with the rise of cell phone towers and wireless and all of that. Like I said, I've suffered from tinnitus from a very young age. I've always had ringing in my ears all the time, but a lot of that has to do with going to concerts when I was young and listening to music at a high level. I did a lot of that myself, so I'm partially to blame for that. But there are occasions where you got to wonder, like sometimes when you're laying down and all of a sudden you just get this massively loud ringing in one ear that just kind of fades. It's almost like somebody turning up a volume dial. It just kind of goes woo, and then it'll just go boom, cut out. It's really weird. It almost sounds like, it really does sound like a frequency that you would hear over some sort of a frequency generator, and then the volume just cutting off all of a sudden. You got to wonder what that is. Is that a frequency spike coming from a cell phone tower? And another interesting thing is that there's a field right behind my house and there's a cell phone tower there. So we live in very close proximity to a cell phone tower, and it is really weird. And like I said, whenever I played that audio of the Cuban sonic weapon, it pretty much mirrored the tinnitus sound that I hear in my ears, just louder, right? You're just hearing it at a higher frequency. And like I said, the next day I got a headache from it, or I got a headache, and the only thing I can think of is, and I was wondering too when I played that, I was sitting there thinking, if I play this audio, is it going to have an effect on me? And it's weird. It's weird that you said that Clyde Lewis played it on his show, and then so many people called in and said it was messing with them. And by the end of the show, he felt really drained and weird. There's something to it.
He was genuinely wiped out. And if this is a noise that they're transmitting, maybe some of us do detect it, some others don't. But on a subconscious level, that in itself could be a way of controlling people, because if you can just kind of knock them slightly out of balance, destroy that equilibrium, then they're going to be far easier to literally mind control.
Well, look how many people feel sluggish and feel drained all the time. Maybe they're not actually hearing it, but it could just be having a physical effect on them, constantly being bombarded with it.
Exactly, Scott, because we know even when we're young, we can hear different frequencies from that when we're older in life. So absolutely, just because you yourself might not audibly detect it, it doesn't mean that it's not there, and it doesn't mean that it's not having some effect on you. Now, we're almost at the end of hour number 2, and before I forget, Chris and Cherie Geo will be live on Beyond the Veil right after this show finishes tonight, but we've still got an hour to go with myself, Kev Baker, Joe Joseph, Kenneth Webb, and Scotty Lopez. So we'll be back after these short messages, and we're going to turn up the woo even further. Don't go anywhere.
What is it good for?
You are now tuned into the truth frequency.
We are TFR. TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
Wanna know, are you true? Can you woo 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 woo? They don't thug it like I do. Can you woo 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 woo? I wanna know, are you true? Can you woo 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 woo? They don't run this like we do. Can you woo woo woo?
Is it true? Is it deja vu? Is it you? Can I come through and kick it with you? Can we woo woo woo? Sniff a little ooh ooh. Don't really matter cause you're still my boo boo. We can slide out, ride out, back to my hideout.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Hour number 3 right here on Freaky Friday on your favourite network, www.tfrlive.com. I can't believe we're moving into hour number 3 already. We've covered so many topics tonight, but before the break, we were talking about the mysterious sonic attack on embassy employees that happened in Cuba. Now, I'm still kind of shocked and trying to make sense of the fact that this story ever seen the light of day, because this opens the door to the world of silent weapons and all the kind of stuff that we speculate about normally. Yet they are admitting that there's been sonic weapons attacks, Joe, in Cuba. And that, for me, I mean, I can't put my finger on it. Maybe there's nothing there at all. But the fact that we're learning about this in the likes of the Daily Mail, CNN, BBC, something stinks about this, and I don't know what it is.
You know what it is? I'll be honest with you.
Could it be a false flag?
Well, they're getting... The problem is they're finally coming to grips with the fact that, oh my gosh, those gosh darn conspiracy theorists, wow, they nailed it again. So instead of, being shown up all the time by, peeps like you and me and Scotty and Ken and Whistles and everybody else out there.
Aaron and Melissa, Joe.
Aaron and Melissa. Now, there are two people, and let me just lay it all out there for everybody. After what happened at InfoWars, and after they left, they were effectively blackballed everywhere. And I'll give you an example. Recently, they were scheduled to go on to Coast AM for an interview with George Norrie. And the day before they were on the day of the interview, just all of a sudden up and canceled, all their stuff removed from the site, gone. And it's just further validation that for whatever reason, they're being blackballed. And the problem I have with that is those two put out some of the highest quality, some of the most thoroughly researched information in independent media. Absolute gold when it comes to people that are looking for legitimate ways to wake up family, friends, loved ones, coworkers. It doesn't matter. Their stuff is some of the best stuff to present to people to get out there. And they've just been getting the crap kicked out of them. Well, they too have researched this Cuban sonic weapon, and they just did a video on that, Kev. So would you mind playing it for everybody? Because I think it would be brilliant.
And just to back up what you said, I mean, I've been on YouTube for years, Joe, and I can only look at people like Aaron and Melissa Dykes and admire what they are doing. The production level, I mean, we were talking about Netflix earlier on, and I believe their film Obsolescence is on Amazon Prime, but all of their kind of short documentaries, every one of them, and I don't say this just because I know them, don't know them as well as you, Joe, but they are out of this world. And, I was saying to Scott, and he agreed that probably even their production quality, it's too good for YouTube anyway. It really, really is. And I've learned so much from the presentations that they've made on there, not just the information, but the way they put things together, both visually and connecting the dots. It's amazing. Can't speak highly enough of them. And like Joe says, they have released a video. Synchronicity, because we went to find another video that Scott remembered them doing, and their latest video happens to be about that mysterious sonic attack in Cuba. So this is Truth Stream Media. Spit it out, Kev. Here we go.
I think the mysterious sonic weapon attacks in Cuba remain interesting largely because of how exotic the weapon is. That's what first caught my eye and likely makes it stand out to everyone else as well. Supposedly nearly 24 State Department employees have been attacked by this sonic weapon, which at least sometimes has narrow laser-like focus to one area of a room, to a specific person, to a specific room, and has been connected to a number of health-related issues that have been ongoing, including hearing loss, memory loss, nausea, lack of concentration, and a number of other fairly general symptoms, as well as claims of mild brain damage similar to a concussion. But that's what they say about the attacks anyway, because Cuba maintains that they're a work of complete fiction. The victims themselves haven't stepped forward, and it's unclear if this is actually going on, but it definitely could be. There's some very advanced weaponry that has already been unveiled ever since the days of the Gulf War, in numerous protest situations, even inside the United States, and certainly in military and intelligence testing. They can do everything from kill to harm, to cause pain, to cause masses of people to run away screaming. You've seen LRAD devices used in riots and protests inside the United States and around the world.
Bullets made of sound waves that can be used by the military and in medicine.
You must leave the immediate vicinity.
Sound bullets do exist. The idea of being able to focus sound in a very narrow spot, focus energy so that you can increase the temperature and, for example, cause death of undesired cells, like, for example, tumor cells.
And this has been going on for months now. It's been reported since at least August, and it's believed to have been going on since late 2016, almost a whole year. More recently, a recording of one of the sounds that the victims heard was released. Although I'm certainly not going to play it here. You can go look it up if you like. I have no idea what might be embedded in that sound. But so far, the Navy and other authorities and various agencies claim they can't figure it out. They don't know the nature of this weapon. They don't have anything like it. And they can't prove who did it, but there does seem to be a lot of implication at the door of Cuba. And what's very interesting about this is it's a virtual replay of the Moscow signal from the 60s and 70s, which was a mysterious microwave signal detected at the U.S. Embassy in Moscow that was traced back to as early as 1953 and was linked to ill health effects since at least the early 60s. And this thing was ongoing for a minimum of 15 years, perhaps as much as 30. And there's a suspected link to at least 2 cancer deaths of former U.S. ambassadors to the Soviet Union, as well as a number of diplomats and staff members who had issues like bleeding out of their ears and other really noxious problems, shortened lifespan. And there was so much political suspicion that officially the U.S. started Project Pandora to study the effects of microwaves and radar and other non-ionizing radiation upon human behavior. But of course they claimed that was inconclusive and they closed it off quickly. But that's hardly the point. But to the extent that these health effects and behavioral effects are real, if anything even is going on in Cuba, and that does remain disputed at this time, it's not yet possible to ascribe blame. It could easily be a self-inflicted wound, a military test of capabilities, and it could also be an unfriendly act by a hostile nation, be it Cuba, Russia, or several other world players. And of course, it could simply be manufactured to generate news interest. Cuba, for its part, has vehemently denied blame and called it a science fiction. But diplomats on both sides have been sent home, and either way, it's clear that the issue is being used as a pretext for tanking the diplomatic relations between Cuba and the U.S. And there's certainly a long track record of that in Cuba. Travel restrictions were finally relaxed in the waning Obama years after decades and decades of sanctions and a ban on American travel there. There appears to be an element intent on sabotaging those relations, closing off the tourism, and ending any friendly diplomatic relations between the two countries. And I just finished covering Operation Northwoods, during which the U.S. military mulled over dozens of different pretexts that would justify starting a war with Cuba. And the scenarios range from starting rumors to sabotage attacks by friendly Cubans to starting riots and to staging the crashes of airplanes that were marked up as if they carried civilians when in fact they were drones. They had several different ways of suggesting that an attack of one kind or another on a ship, on an aircraft, on a boat, or any other area really could be a trigger for the U.S. to enter war with Cuba. And I want to thank RJ Soul for sending me the extended version of the Northwoods document that spans 181 pages of similar talk about what to do if the Cuban regime commits hostile acts, that is, if they're perceived, what kind of incident would allow them to stage an overt U.S. intervention in Cuba, under which conditions they would have the justification for restoring order by moving in troops, and why they would need to withdraw afterwards, the end goal of installing a government that is acceptable to the United States there. And 6 months before the Cuban Missile Crisis, this report that's part of Operation Northwoods and part of Operation Mongoose talks again and again and again what they would do if the Soviets had a base or had missiles and a base on or near Cuba, what they would do, whether or not this would lead to an intervention.
Communist-controlled or a communist-influenced military base in the Americas. These are Soviet jet fighters. They point up a problem which seriously concerns and disturbs all Americans right now, the problem of a communist-controlled or communist-influenced military base in the Americas. Soviet technicians are at work in Cuba now, building hard missile launching sites which could cover every part of the United States.
And a lot of these scenarios became visible and others didn't, but it's a little bit too coincidental how much they talked about how they would respond if the Soviet Union brought missiles into Cuba, if there was ever evidence that they had a base. And lo and behold, in 1962, things reached a point where nuclear war was possible, worldwide war seemed imminent, and a wider war with Russia seemed really very much in view, and it was narrowly averted, but history suggests that it was largely provocated, and the blueprints for it are in this document. The incident itself built up after U-2 spy plane pictures showed bases that would have nuclear missiles on Cuba. These were released to the public. Whether they were legitimate or not, a blockade and embargo was put in place. They called it just a quarantine, a step down from a blockade. And a few tense days later, a U-2 pilot was shot down and killed, even though they fly at 70,000 feet. Some kind of malfunction issue caused them to have to fly lower. They were shot down and killed. And the Joint Chiefs of Staff who drew up and approved this Operation Northwoods had previously tried to get Kennedy to agree that if a U-2 spy plane were shot down in this way, it would be an automatic provocation for war. They were looking for a reason again and again for a justification for U.S. military intervention, and they put one on Kennedy's plate. And I suppose the world is lucky that he didn't take the bait. But during that time and in the years since, there were several suspicious incidents, very few of them ever fully explained, that fit right in with repeated calls. And among other scenarios, Operation Northwoods, this U.S. document, encouraged legitimate defections and attempted to foster an uprising in Cuba, again under Operation Mongoose. But they talk specifically about encouraging defections, and around that time period, you see again and again in the newspapers accounts of pilots who supposedly deboarded their plane after they touched down in international areas or flew over to the U.S.
And Pedro Díaz-Lanz, the former head of Castro's Air Force, he was the first Cuban official to defect.
And there were so many defections that they brought backup crews in case pilots were defecting in Cuba, so it was starting to make waves. Meanwhile, there were multiple accounts of hijacked airplanes and other events that seemed generated at making Cuba itself seem like a fearful place. And these events continued on years after the missile crisis was over. The U.S. never went to war with Cuba, presumably because of the negotiations from the Cuban Missile Crisis and an agreement never to invade Cuba. But events fitting the secondary description of sabotage and riots and uprisings continued to take place, along with some very provocative hijacking and attack incidents. In particular, Northwoods called for an ongoing terror campaign that would seek to blame the Cubans for every incident, but actually terrorize people in Miami and actually harm and sometimes kill friendly Cubans, exile Cubans who were friendly with the U.S. government, and innocent community members in order to stage greater and greater amounts of terror on them. And meanwhile, the U.S. and the anti-Castro side had been fostering terrorists of its own that were trained within the CIA, that were funded and supported by them.
To back up the hopes of those counter-revolutionary groups, tools like these are being collected, second-hand weapons of all kinds, which are loaded into small boats like these for increasingly dangerous trips to Cuba, taking in supplies and bringing out refugees and fugitives from Castro's police. In this way, many exiles have gone back to Cuba to fight.
And all these things happened in Northwoods as a result of Castro nationalizing U.S. corporate assets in Cuba and creating a very severe backlash to sanction and blockade Cuba until they relinquished that back to the U.S. companies, which never happened. And while all this was happening, the U.S. and the anti-Castro friendly side were sponsoring terrorists of their own who were CIA trained and funded and supported, many of whom were Cuban exiles who were perpetrating it. And chief among those is Luis Posada Carrillas, who was accused of shooting down in 1976 a Cuban airliner with 73 people on board, and later of attacking beachgoers in Cuba and killing one man in a terrorist attack he intended to reduce tourism and curb friendly trade between the countries and keep these sanctions going, which by the mid-70s had begun to cool off. 20 years after that, relations were beginning to improve again. And in 1996, there was a scenario that took place that was right out of Operation Northwoods, which not only calls for shooting down a friendly plane, but discusses sinking a boatload of Cubans en route to Florida, escaping there, which is either real or simulated. Well, they combined these together in the 1996 attack. These planes were supposedly humanitarian planes searching for the boatloads of Cubans so they could rescue them, and they were supposedly shot down by Cuban MiG fighters. And although it didn't lead to war, it did lead to tougher sanctions and an end of the kind of laissez-faire attitude and re-strengthen that whole deal. The following year in 1997, Luis Posada struck again, killing tourists in Cuba, again in an attempt to deter tourism to Cuba. So it's very interesting to put together the pieces of what may have happened in the 2017-2016 Cuban sonic weapon attacks, when by all appearances there's an administration that doesn't want to get more friendly with Cuba, that wants to go back to the sanctions beforehand to please certain constituents. There are still people who do not want the Cuban relations to thaw until that long Cold War is finally won.
All that talk Castro, and he never went scuba diving once.
Not one time. No. But interestingly enough, I got to tell you, I totally agree with his assessment on it, and the fact that you now have an administration that is willing to go along with the bad Cuban narrative, which, you know, I'm not saying that the Castro brothers were good people or anything else, because I'm not, but we certainly have no place in telling another sovereign nation on what the hell to do and how to do it. But the fact that they use this sonic weapon is very interesting because of the history that exists with the KGB utilizing it back in the 60s against the U.S. Embassy. There's a track record of that. There's plausible deniability, and there's the culpability of the Russians because, hey, they used it before. So it must be, they must have given it to the Cubans and the Cubans used it on us. Those dirty, dastardly people. And, you know, I'll bet you it was our own people pointing the antenna at our embassy doing it just to blame Cuba so that we could dial back all of those thawing, refreeze it, if you will. That's really, I think that's really what happened. Now, the interesting thing about these weapons is the fact that you don't really hear it, you feel it, but there's really no outward way of identifying it as it's happening to the general population around because of the way that it uses and utilizes a direct beam antenna. So it's not omnidirectional. And if you're not in the line of that antenna, of that beam, then you don't know what's going on. So it's a really, really good, effective, covert weapon that can incapacitate a lot of people that are in that beam very quickly and with very little fanfare.
Yeah, and there's a few people that worked in the embassy that were affected that I think weren't intended to be targeted, but it would make sense if, say, somebody accidentally walked in front of the beam, right? Like walking through a hallway, if they're aiming it at a certain room and you have somebody working in the embassy that just happens to walk in front of the beam, then boom, they're affected by it. They get hit by it. So, exactly. You're talking about a targeted sonic weapon, but of course it's going to go through anything that's in front of its line of sight. So
that's right.
You can definitely have a little bit of collateral there if somebody just happens to, be unfortunate enough to walk in front of it.
Sure. But not enough to where you're going to spark a investigation or anything like that. It's going to be just enough for people to say, oh yeah, that crazy son of a gun, he's at it again. Or, oh yeah, just more tinfoil hattery. You're going to spark excuses and that ad hominem attack instantly, because that's what this stuff generates.
Because nobody around there can hear it or even knows what's going on.
Right. Just amazing. So I'm very very glad to see that this is out in the open, but I'm not, if you know what I mean, because this tells me that they're very active. I looked at also, not just in Cuba, but look what's going on in Africa, with all of the stuff we're doing over there. It's the same thing. You see, again, like the empire using all of its available technology and assets to ratchet down control. So you have to ask, what the hell is going on and what are they trying to achieve here? Because on a global scale, things have been ratcheted up to such an intense level. Oh, I mean, it's unbelievable. So that's why I kind of think that we may be seeing something on the horizon, just because the powers that shouldn't be, when they do things, there's no way they can account for human error and all that kind of stuff. And we just typically have ways of screwing things up. And so I think that something is going to go horribly wrong here, and we may see some collateral damage or direct damage from it. Specifically, think about this, right? So everybody's poo-pooing Kim Jong-un and his weapons of war and all this kind of stuff. But all it takes, and they just validated this in a study that just got wrapped up. All it takes is one, not even having to be well placed, nuclear warhead to go off in the atmosphere to take out a significant portion of the electrical grid, your electronics, most vehicles, and throw us back to a time, prior to electricity, where they're saying conservatively 90% of the population would be dead within 6 months. So all it takes is one. It doesn't even have to be his. And all you got to do is get it in the general vicinity and bang, gonzo, right? So I don't know, guys, but I'm feeling like what I'm seeing is these people with means are like kicking in their breakaway civilization slant emergency preparedness plans into overdrive. You know what I mean? And it's causing a lot of people that pay attention to perk their ears up and say, what's going on? And I think we're hitting that point where we're going to see something that happens that is going to be a significant game changer in the way that we live. How it manifests, I don't know. But there certainly is a lot of preparation.
We're definitely heading towards some kind of event.
Yeah.
The question is, what is it going to be? Because there's so many things.
And what are they going to play
on
on
the table? Yeah, exactly.
Like Nibiru? Perhaps even Kev Baker. Perhaps Kev Baker and the two drunk idiots that are fighting outside his flat right now.
It's just normal for 2:25 a.m. in the morning in Glasgow, Joe. Nobody.
It's that cider, dude. I can't believe that you guys drink that. It's like what is it? It's a quid for a big old freaking 2-liter bottle of cider.
Probably something like that. It's been that long since I've actually had a drink. I don't know.
Oh my God.
I know the stuff you're
Scotty,
on about.
It's the equivalent of Mad Dog 2020.
It's like,
but it comes in like a 2-liter bottle.
And it's like It's rocket fuel for idiots.
Oh man, I mean it is pretty nasty stuff. And you want to talk about Agenda 21? I swear to God that cider is a implement of it. It's like rock cut.
They can get rid of the cider all they want. They can give us some artificial stuff because it can't be any worse than the cheap gump that they feed people over here.
I can't even believe they call it cider. There's no cider in it. Absolutely none.
No apples went into making this product.
I think it's recycled antifreeze from the vehicles, to be honest with you.
How dare you speak so poorly of Glasgow, Joe? That's terrible.
No, hey, I said, it's the equivalent of Mad Dog here. So
Mad Dog, that's what the young ones drink over here. I couldn't stomach it, but that's what the young ones feel up on.
Wow, we're at the break. One more segment to go, and then we finish up and hand it over to the GOs. What a great night tonight it's been to get the gang back together here on Freaky Friday. We'll be right back after these messages. Don't go away.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
No hate, no hype, no fear. Real people, real radio.
I'll stand tall in the face of tyranny. I want it all on my freedom and liberty. I'll keep my guns, you can keep your security. I'll stand tall in the face of tyranny. I'll stand tall in the face of tyranny. I want it all on my freedom and liberty. I'll keep my guns, you can keep your security. I'll stand tall in the face of tyranny.
The final segment of Freaky Friday, always a sad thing. And so, last segment, let's ease it up a little bit more. Now, we don't need to talk about nose pickers on a subway. No, we're going to go over to China, where, they actually have a little bit of money to spend, so they get to build entire cities that no one lives in. But they also get to build, according to the Daily Mail, a £1 billion, so it's about $1.5 billion, virtual reality sci-fi theme park, which lets tourists visit aliens, ride UFOs, and fight dragon. So what I'm thinking this is actually boot camp for what's coming here to planet Earth. So the Chinese are actually getting a step ahead of the ball game for when we actually have to fight the alien hordes coming to planet Earth, and or the reestablishment of how it was on Earth prior to the flood and the subsequent life on Earth as we know it now. Maybe it is, Scotty, going back to Lord of the Rings. Who knows?
I'm there. I'm totally there.
I swear, if I had the resources, I'd be there yesterday. This is the coolest thing I think I've ever seen. What a awesome facility. It says curious gamers will be able to travel to the future, battle with dragons, fly to space, or even live alongside aliens through a virtual experience. One of the most impressive features is the attraction will have a gigantic Transformer statue, which measures 174 feet in height. A 174-foot transformer. Unbelievable. The transformer statue is built by 750 tons of steel, the weight of 2 Boeing 747s, and costing an amazing 11 million pounds to construct. Just one statue, folks, in this new virtual reality theme park that China's building. One statue, 11 million pounds, 750 tons of steel. The theme park is called the East Valley of Science and Fantasy. Its first phase, called Alien Base, is scheduled to be complete in December. The theme park is a part of a massive 1.3 square kilometer or 320 acre project being developed by the Oriental Times Media Corp's animation unit, which is listed on the Shenzhen stock market. And the new venture will be totally devoted to virtual reality movie making with a cutting-edge media research and development center. So they say. I think it's boot camp. What do you think, Scotty?
This is wild, man. And this kind of reminds me, of the same sort of, I had talked about this on Kev's show yesterday, how, we were talking about, you made that video about Saudi Arabia building that megapolis, right? Sure. And we see China engaging in the same kind of stuff. Activity. Yeah, the same stuff. And
why?
Yeah, it makes you wonder, it is, I think it's preparation. It's
right. So if they're signed on to the plan, right? So let's just use the Georgia Guidestones as, say, a version of the plan. And they want to see, say, the Earth down to 500 million people, everything else. Then all you have to do is provide them places like this, or perfect that brain machine interface so people don't even have to leave their houses. They can just, think about going somewhere and boop, they're there. They can unplug from reality. They don't feel the need to procreate because you can just simulate having a family. Why go through all the motions of actually doing it and becoming, debt ridden and having all the difficulties that are associated with, raising kids and all that? Why? When you can just simulate it and shut it off whenever you want. You know what I mean? And by doing that, instantly within a generation or two, you're at that 500 million mark. It doesn't take long to get there. And people will do it willingly because we've got that culture of convenience mentality in people now. That self-centeredness is just ingrained in humanity now in the first world. And they'll willingly do it because it's easier. And think about it. At that point, game over. And no one knows any different. As far as they're concerned, it's just the way that humanity, this is the way it went. And there's no powers that shouldn't be, all that stuff. It's crazy.
Well, yeah, and what it sounds like to me is that this thing is more of a testing facility, right?
Yes.
They're making it out to be, it's just a theme park. Come to the theme park. It's got all kinds of VR rides and stuff. But what they're doing is they're going to be feeding people in there, and they're going to be perfecting the matrix system, right? This is like I would say a center for the population to funnel into and experience the stuff, and they can,
while extracting data.
Yeah, they're gathering data on how to perfect this virtual reality experience. And you know what better place to do it than China, right?
Exactly. And think about it. Who has the most to gain here from it? China does, of course, because, if you want to talk about population control, China's a great place to try that. And you've got plenty of willing people that will do it just because, when the state says jump, you say how high over there. Yeah, it's really, and we're the same way here. Look, when we look at the, that whole flag thing that's going on, and everybody's so butthurt because you don't stand up and salute the flag or put your hand over your heart or sing the national anthem. When I mean, it's straight up North Korea behavior, and people are clamoring for it here. So it's different here.
You know that Google and Silicon Valley and everybody there is watching this and looking at what China's doing, and then eventually it's going to work its way over here.
Totally agree with you, dude. Totally agree with you. Only they're going to say, wow, look what China's doing. We need to do it bigger and better over here.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to have all the justification they need to do it. It says here, a spokesman for the park revealed that VR helmets and other gadgets will be handed out to the visitors to the theme park so they can interact with the environment. So you're going to have augmented reality at a minimum the moment that you walk through those gates. It says the VR site will give players a more lifelike feeling than actually playing video games. And additionally, the park will feature China's first VR roller coaster and 13 pavilions showing different UFOs, which can help children explore outer space in a digitally immersive way. So, I mean, when you see some of these pictures, folks, you will be just astounded at the sheer size and resources that went in to putting this together. And the only people, the only corporations here in the United States that would be able to do this on a grander scale, there's only a handful. You know, you're talking about Microsoft, Apple, Google. Who else, Scotty? You know, maybe Disney, but I don't even think Disney has the resources for this.
Yeah, that you would probably see them partner up with the tech industry and do something like that. But yeah, it would definitely be the big players in Silicon Valley, like
or Musk can get a grant for it.
and with how much they're extending their tentacles out, I wouldn't be surprised to see Amazon probably do something.
Very good.
Like that.
Amazon, another biggie, right? Absolutely.
The potential for the AI to learn as well, though, because with virtual reality, they could tailor any experience whatsoever to get a genuine response from us humans. And they always want to model our behavior. It wants to observe us. It wants to learn better. What better way than to do it in that virtual environment and dress it up as a game? And we know it's the gaming industry that's taught AI everything it basically knows today anyway. Sure. So it's just the next logical step. And I mean, there's so many different levels to this. There really is. The youngsters there getting programmed about the UFOs and everything as well. It seems like a almost nothing story because it's a theme park. But then when you look at the pictures and look what it's putting forward, there's a lot more to this. There really is. And it looks like some kind of alien spaceport, by the way. Just saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild, man.
Yeah. So am I surprised? No. I'm surprised at the amount of resources that would go into a quote theme park. But once you look at what they're actually doing and what it can actually provide them, I mean, this is money well spent in their eyes. And let's not forget again that, you know, China's building vast cities and spending trillions and trillions of dollars on infrastructure right now to develop this this capability to put the majority of their population in these mega cities. And now you're seeing Saudi Arabia do the same thing while dangling out the carrot of women without the burqas on, with equal rights for men, all that kind of stuff. When really, I think what we're seeing is an acceleration of the plan to concentrate human populations in megacities, reduce the population, and rewild the rural areas. Wow.
I mean, this is what me and Scott were talking about last night as well. It's like there's almost been an acceleration in the curtain coming off the New World Order and everything that comes with it. It really is. It's like they've upped their game. Here's your mega cities. Boom. Here's everything else. Boom, boom, boom. It's coming to a head. Like you say, Joe, something is coming. Some event, and I don't put dates on it, and I can't even put my finger on what it is, but if people aren't feeling it by now, then they obviously aren't paying attention. That's all I can say.
And, it feels kind of crappy to say that because it's like it's broken record time. I mean, here we are. We've been doing this for a long time. And it's always, there's always things. And the first thing I can tell you, folks, is don't look at this stuff as just wishing for the end of the world and the end to come. Oh, I just wish it would get over already. It's never going to be. That's the thing is that I don't know, got comfort and peace in the notion that it'll end when it ends. Until then, stop looking for it. In the meantime, let's be vigilant, pay attention to what's going on. But we have to fight this fight and keep doing what we're doing and exposing this kind of stuff so that we have a better understanding of what's going on and what they're trying to achieve. But as far as the end, you know what? When it comes, it comes. There's nothing we're going to be able to do to stop it. But what we can do is, until that time, we can try and thwart the plans of these buggers and maybe try to use this technology and implement it properly instead of the way that they want to do it, which would be to overall control us and take away our humanity and what it means to be human. I think at the end of the day, that's where we're headed if we don't stop it.
Yeah. I also find it.
I'm just, I guess I'm kind of spooked at a lot of people look at it as the evolution of humanity, the merging of man and machine. I just don't see it that way. I don't know. I'm very skeptical that it can go off without a hitch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's not the route that I think we're supposed to take, right? Everything they're doing through this, transhumanist, futurist agenda, they're doing this stuff synthetically whenever we have the ability to do that naturally, and somewhere along the line we have forgotten how to do that. With the stuff that ancient man used to do, right?
Thank you.
We have
that ability already.
We have that. Yeah, we have that ability. We have a Stargate behind our forehead. We have that ability to quantumly teleport.
Yes,
it's in our mind. We have a D wave behind our forehead.
Yes,
our brains are quantum computers, and
it's hard to wrap your arms around those, Scotty.
Exactly. And what's happening is we're trying to do all of this synthetically. We're trying to do all of this artificially, when the real answer is we need to get back into touch with ourselves and figure out how to tap into this potential that we've forgotten how to use.
Somehow, some way along the line, the link got severed, or at least it didn't get totally severed. I mean, I truly believe that we're all connected, that kind of here we are in our reality connected to the cloud somewhere else, wherever God is, the cloud, if you will. It comes down from the cloud, right? Everything's from the clouds. So
the real cloud.
Right. So I'm finding, again, similarities that have been thrown into our reality that it works. So, but we've lost our ability to understand that relationship and what our capabilities are. It's kind of like the BIOS battery went dead and we're trying to pick up the pieces, if you will. Because that's kind of how I feel when I look at this, and then I look at the stuff that humanity achieved long ago, things that we could do that we can't do today, but we can, but we can't, if you know what I mean. And we have this capability to remain who we are. But no one wants to go down that road, because if you do, you're killed or you're blackballed or any number of things to keep us from understanding what our true capabilities as human beings are. And
And part of
what
it
it would take to get there, Scotty, you know?
Well, yeah, and part of that also is, how much of that ability is suppressed by all of the junk we eat, all of the Wi-Fi we're experiencing, but constantly bombarding us, all of the crap sprayed in the air. I mean, we're being hit from all angles, and you just have to wonder what the effect of all of that is, on our mind. It literally is a dumbing down of the population, but it's also suppressing our ability to activate that Stargate behind our forehead and utilize that quantum computer that is behind our forehead. It's put humanity into a basically like a low. It's like a low frequency state that we just.
It's like we're trapped within like this invisible Dyson sphere. Everybody is.
We're like operating on like reserve battery power.
Yeah,
basically
like very low capability. Just
enough to keep it running, but nothing is being utilized to its full potential.
We had you go down to South America and you see these stones, these megalithic stones that were obviously, first of all, they were molded into place. How do you mold stone cold? The only way you can do it is with frequency to liquefy the stone. And we've done it before, but God forbid we try to recapture that. And instead we go down these really, cumbersome, complex, impossible most times of paths that often yield a lot of trouble, waste so much resources, time, money, all of that kind of stuff. And we did it. We just can't do it now when we could. And that's what's so frustrating. How come we're not looking at being able, when we have an earthquake, Scott, and you know what earthquakes are now that you're in the earthquake capital of the world. Who knew tornadoes weren't enough there, so let's just give you a lot of earthquakes. And through liquefaction in an earthquake, the ground itself almost liquefies because of the vibrations, because of the frequency. So it seems to me to be a very easy thing to understand. Why can't we do that on a larger scale and start molding stone in that way like we used to do? There's no need to heat it up to where you have liquefied stone and it's hot like that. Hey, just sonic blast it, mold it in this shape, and you're done. We did it before. Why can't we do it again? Think about what that would mean to humanity, And then, of course, it justifies why we find everything built out of stone back then, because it would be very easy. It'd be like the sheetrock of today. You know what I mean? Instead, people are using marble. That's pretty badass.
Yeah, back ancient man was able to basically. It was like you were able to reshape things on the molecular level. It was.
That's what I'm
crazy.
Saying. So, if we just, as humanity, said, "Oh wow, this is where we were," and we just kind of kept going with it, could you imagine where we'd be today? Who knows? Who knows? We're our own worst enemy. Really.
But Joe, the breakaway civilization are exactly where we should be today.
Where is that?
Out in the stars, my brother.
It may not even be out in the stars. It may be in another dimension.
Very true. It could be right here all around us right now, only in another dimension.
That's what that Voltron series, Kev, gets into that.
I'm going to have to check that out because
into transdimensional travel, living in different realities.
That really make it across the Atlantic to here. I don't remember that when I was growing up, and we're a similar age, Joe. So
what?
You don't know what you're missing, bro. You'll just eat it alive.
Well, I'm reading a book just now, or I'm listening to a book right now, Audible. If you haven't tried that, I recommend it to anyone. It was Popeye, our friend, that put me onto it. I can't get enough of it, but the book I'm reading right now, and I just picked it at random. It was The Atlantis Gene. So I'm thinking, well, that sounds like the kind of sci-fi thing I would read. Oh, little did I know, guys. You're talking about a conspiracy that spans back over 2,000 years, a shadowy group that are hiding the true origins of the human race. There's a Nazi bell in there as well. I tell you, you can't get away from this stuff. Here I am trying to get a book to get away from the kind of stuff that we talk about to relax. It's all about the kind of stuff that we get into. So if anyone out there finds themselves with some time on their hands and you've got Audible, check out The Atlantis Gene. Because I tell you, if you like Freaky Friday, this is going to be so up your street. Unbelievable. I don't even get paid for that plug, Joe. It's terrible, isn't it?
Man, that was really nice of you to do that.
I know, I should really write to the author and say, hey, come on, pay up.
Yeah.
No, it's a good book. Definitely a good book. And I take it you're a fan of Audible as well, Joe?
I'm a fan of audiobooks in general.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, you want to talk about taking advantage of the time that you have, whether you're just sitting on the can and have to be there for a while. What better way? Or, you look at all the time you waste just sitting on the can. For me, it's a lot of time. And I could probably have gotten 3 PhDs by the time I'm done. And Audible's a great way to do it, or any other type of audiobook type of application.
Yeah, I love audiobooks because I'm disabled and I have extremely limited mobility, and it's quite a chore for me to sit there and try to turn pages in a book. So I always go to audiobooks, and it's just it's a great way to go through a book without having to mess around with one. I love it.
Yep. And boy, we're almost out of time here. I want to invite everybody to check out thedailySheeple.com. # wake the flock up.
That is so cheesy, man.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do, right?
It's good, man.
With that on, I'm going to get a T-shirt with that on and a big crazy-looking sheep on the back, Joe.
Oh, we've got it. It's all good. We just got to get the T-shirts made, but yeah, we got it. Yeah, check it out because we are getting absolutely battered by the censorship bug. Our friends at Activist Post, their channel, gone. Yeah, just taken away. Not a blemish on it, gone. So, crazy things are happening out there. We have to support one another as, getting harder and harder.
We got to do a show one of these days where we talk about alternative avenues of getting information out there.
I've fallen victim to the censors over on YouTube as well, Joe. It's happened to me now. And it all started to come back and bite me in the ass when it started covering Las Vegas.
Oh, God, don't do that.
No, go figure. Really, go figure. So, yeah, we're all feeling the pinch, man. We really are. But that is a good point. What alternatives are there? And that's something we'll get into at a later date. But from me, enjoy the rest of your day, evening, morning, wherever you are. Make it tea.
And diggity touch that dial. Dadgummit.
Redneck whistles. What's that?
Hi, my name is Ella, and I'm 10 years, 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 and I'm 10 years.